And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Years ago, I used to do, evening radio. It feels like that right now. Like, could it be any darker here in downtown Rochester right now with this storm coming through?
Gloomy skies.
Yeah,
the thunder earlier. I don't know if you heard it. I felt it.
Yeah,
that was pretty crazy.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here, Tim.
Thank you.
Tim Schneider, Gene Battaglia with you. Mike Danger is off this week. We got a lot to talk about we're hanging out, talking sports today here in the Flower City. We got a Bills camp schedule. We've got a Major League Baseball team that's up for sale, and this is one that certainly will have some storylines to it. And we've also got a championship that's wrapped up, another one that could be wrapping up soon. So a lot happening here in the sports bar. Let's set you up for the show here today as we will talk some puck in the 4 o'clock hour. Our buddy Joe Yurden from the Bleacher Report will be joining us, noted hockey as well, as we'll talk about, all right, what just kind of happened, but now the NHL offseason comes and boom, there's really no time to kind of soak it in here if you're an NHL executive or anything. Here we go. What's next for the Sabres? What's next for some of these other teams? Joe Yurden from the Bleacher Report in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll also talk to PJ Glasser, host of Send It In, for his normal Wednesday segment. Love talking with PJ. You're hearing PJ this week also on BetMGM tonight. Yeah, he's a Raven fan. I think he's pretty happy today with the team signing Jair Alexander. That's going to make week one a little more interesting. We'll talk about that with PJ. We'll get his plays. And Tim, the one question I want to ask him is, this seems too good to be true. If Tyrese Halliburton doesn't go tomorrow night, Oklahoma City giving 6.5 at Indianapolis. Really, can Indy kind of rise up here? Can the Pacers do this without their top gun? Didn't look so good, but if there's one coach in this league that maybe can come up with a plan, I'm not going to put it past for Carlisle, but if you had to ask me, that looks too good to be true, which this causes me to kind of tap the brakes like, okay, what is going on? The line, by the way, yesterday was at 4.5, so there's more money going, obviously, in the direction. Used to be with these things in the NFL, if there was a quarterback, we're taking that game off the board.
Right.
But now there's just so much out there. They figured out a way to kind of, split the difference here and make sure that you're playing. You can't have, it'd be easy to take the game off the board, right? But
Vegas always knows.
They know. So we'll talk to PJ Glasser, and PJ Glasser will know. He'll explain to us coming up here. At the bottom of this hour, you are always welcome to join us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Our handle on X is The Fan Rochester. We are on YouTube and Twitch. You can leave a comment for us there. Hi, everybody is waving here on YouTube. You see Terrible Take Timmy with what Bison's hat is that we're wearing today?
It is the Buffalo Bills version of the Buffalo Bisons. They did a football day, kind of like what the Amherst do.
Okay.
The Bisons did it. It's the Bills version of the Buffalo Bisons.
See, that's okay when the Amherst do it and the Bisons do it. It's when the Sabres do it that I have kind of a problem. You're a major league team. Like, it's all cute that, Bruce the Bat Dog got called up, but you're the Washington Nationals. You're major league. You should. Anyhow.
They've lost 10 in a row. It's fine. Are they really major league? They're about to get
lost
swept by the Rockies.
They got smacked by the Rockies. Like, wait a second. The Rockies are winning games. I don't like this new world order here. What's going on here? We'll keep you updated on the College World Series as well. Now, if you subscribe to the theory of look good, play good, I can't say that's applying here for Louisville. Louisville's down 6-0 to Coastal Carolina, bottom of the third. I don't think this is an elimination game for Louisville as they won yesterday. But, Tim, can you give me a review here on these Louisville threads we're watching?
Those are actually good threads. However, they are not leading to victory. So
no,
you could rock that in the big. You could rock that in the bigs. You could rock that in Rochester, that actually would be a very nice Red Wings jersey.
That would be like, Mace, take note of this here because think of it this way. Like if you had to think of iconic uniforms in baseball, the Tequila Sunrises, they're called for the Houston Astros of the 70s. Everybody kind of knows what that looks like. And the Astros every once in a while will crack them out. But it's not something you see replicated today. But Louisville in their own colors, and it's basically all these different shades of red going down to pink, going up and down. I think it kind of works there. But that's what we do here in the month of June, Tim. Hot uniform talk.
I like it.
We'll get to the Bills here as the training camp schedule is out. And the easiest way for me to explain this to you is it's the same schedule essentially as last year, as the year before, In fact, all these years that Sean McDermott, it's you copy and paste. And the one thing McDermott did when the Bills came in, like, why are we practicing in the afternoon? Why do we have these evening practices? Oh, my gosh, well, we need tickets. We need da-da-da. Well, of course, no two-a-days anymore. That went away years ago. But by working out in the morning, let's take, for example, right now, right? You avoid the afternoon thunderstorms. More often than not, thunderstorms pop up in the afternoon. They can happen, certainly, during the day. But camp will open Wednesday the 23rd. It will wrap up on Thursday, August 7th. So there is no scaling back, Tim. This is great. There's going to be 11 practices that are open to the public. They're all going to be at 9:45 in the morning with the exception of the one Sunday practice. Again, just like last year, 11:15 in the morning. We will have one practice that's closed to the public on Monday, August the 4th. That is going to be maybe where they do some install stuff. So 9 practices in all open to the public, and that is I'm looking forward to this. The caveat being I don't want to wish summer away. But to me, whenever the Bills get here in Rochester, even though it's still summer, feels like, okay, it is football season and summer's kind of wrapping up here.
It's the best 2 weeks you could ask for in Rochester. You get a professional football team. Don't forget Hard Knocks also coming.
Of course, yeah.
You've got that for 2 weeks at St. John Fisher University. It really sets the tone for the summer. And we've got 10 morning practices to enjoy.
Yeah, and again, you can go on. So you've got to go into the ticket lottery for this. Years ago, you would go to the cell phone store, do something like that. No, there's such a demand. They've got to keep this in-house. But along with that, Tim, they don't charge for this. So the demand is very high. So there's a limit. There's a lottery system, a limit of 4, and you get what you get. And when you go into the lottery system, the thing that makes this different is you yourself, you've got to use these. You can't be dishing them off because they don't. Last thing they want is any of this to end up on the internet and people reselling. And very rarely do you see something like that, actually.
Yeah, there's a demand and a command for it. You got to sign up. I think you pick your top 3 availability, and if you win, you win, and they will send them to you right to your phone, and you're into St. John Fisher University as a unpaid spectator. Basically, it's free. You just got to sign up.
Yeah, you just got to sign up, and the reason this is the NFL rule, like the Bills or any other team could actually charge, but by charging, then scouts can kind of come in, or anybody else. Like there's a quid pro quo in the NFL that who's to say that Bill, bad example, when he was the Patriot head coach or any coach could show up and take notes. Well, that's not allowed.
A couple of years ago, we had set up shop at our place under the tent there.
Mm-hmm.
I left something. I went back to go grab it. And I had to be escorted back to that because at that point it was a closed practice and they thought I might have been a spy for some other team or something.
Yeah.
I had to be taken to where I was going. I had the media pass and all that, but somebody had to take me there and make sure that I didn't have my phone out or anything just to make sure that everything
no,
was
you're not
closed.
like, right. So
it was, yeah.
So what you're describing is, so like you see all these there. There's no such thing as a 2-a-day, but where they do the installs is around 5, 6 o'clock. And it's nothing more than, here are your dance moves. think about running a play in slow motion, and everybody, nope, you're not in any pads whatsoever, but you're out on the turf or you're out and you're separating. And Tim, I tell you, the first time we were out there in the McDermott area, like, you guys got to leave. I'm like, we're on the air right now.
Right.
Like, we have permission.
We're working.
So I describe it to, there was a movie a few years ago with Sandra Bullock. I've never seen it. Bird Box, I think it was called, where, I don't know, if you looked at the sun, you would die or you go blind or something like that. And everybody has a blindfold on it. So, again, I'm probably butchering the plot line here, seeing that I actually never saw it, but that's kind of what it's like. If we're out there, we are not, you don't even look at what's going on. We can't report on anything that's going on. So that's kind of the thing. Only you would leave your cell phone behind or something like you actually needed. That's a very Tim move, by the way.
You're right. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with Hard Knocks now. Like, they're going to be able to film stuff that we can't speak about because we're going to see it later.
Yeah, like that. Like, I don't think, like, the Bills will have veto power, so like anything, but like for those little walkthroughs, the dance moves I call it. I'm sure Hard Knocks won't be showing any of that.
Correct.
It's very rare that another team will watch Hard Knocks and be like, "Oh, that's it." And there was one year, I forget who the team, maybe it was a Rams, somebody else, that somebody picked up an audible call. Okay, that stuff can happen. So that's the concern. So what is this going to be like with Hard Knocks? It's going to be a lot of fun. The one thing I'm curious is, like, how do they portray Rochester in this? Like, I don't know if they even go beyond Pittsford, to be honest.
They'll do what the Bills do with McDermott does the team bonding thing at Pittsford Dairy and whatever else. They'll go to that kind of thing. They'll have their fun because the Bills kind of script it that way.
Yeah.
It's up to what the Bills want to do.
What the Bills, or like whatever players that they want. Then, hey, somebody's going shopping and they'll
find somebody with personality.
Yeah, they'll find on Monroe Ave. So I think there's so many positives in our town. I just hope that, it comes off looking great.
It is interesting. Like, we've been here our entire life. We appreciate it, but we don't really indulge in everything that we have accessible to us because it's available to us all the time.
No, like, example, right? Like, my family was on a kick, probably because my son was really, like, he's in construction management and he loves, like, home building and design and everything like that. We were on a kick a few years ago that looking at watching HGTV, and all of a sudden HGTV, like, waterfront house hunters, Rochester, New York. I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden, I know the realtor. I went to, the guy's name is Jeremy Havens. I went to high school with him. I'm like, oh my gosh. And you're looking at these places in Charlotte. I'm like, wait, this is our old town? And it's like,
away.
And it's somebody that is like, yeah, we want to buy a, like as a summer home. Like, really?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That's the thing, though.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing, yeah.
We've indulged this life experience our entire life. We don't
We're
appreciate
blind
what's
to
around
it.
to us.
We are blind what is closest to
And
us.
now
It's
you've got the Bills coming for 2 weeks, and they're going to sop it up.
how would
this is their vacation.
Tim, like, there'll be one with the damn dairy, get so much pub. Like, what are you going to do? Cancel your advertising? No, you don't. The damn dairy, I'll call it. And then also, you've got Oak Hill. I'm sure they will have an episode of Josh going over there, and when the players need some downtime, and they'll show the swings and they'll show Brandon Bean and having fun on the course or whatever it is. Yeah, they'll as long as Oak Hill will have them, which
They'd be silly not to.
That'd be silly not to. Like, legitimately, that's kind of the secret weapon that's keeping this here. The fact that the Buffalo Bills in the year 2025, take away the COVID years or whatever, that's 26 years, 26 seasons now here.
And it's been a wild ride because when I was a child, it was all access, do what you want, hang out with the players, and now you have to have tickets to enter. It's free, but you have to have tickets. That's how much of a command and a demand there is now for literal practice.
Yeah, at some point, there were teams that figured out we need to make money off of this. Tim, at Fredonia, and I went to Fredonia when I was a fan, and I went to Fredonia my first year for the now defunct Shout magazine covering the team. Like, they had a snow fence. That was it. 2 grass fields, snow fence. Players could walk over to the dorms, but most of them would hop on a golf cart and scoot right by. Some would sign. And there would be one merch tent, like the little wagon that they still probably use, and no concessions. Like, it literally, think of this like any other team kind of doing this right now, whether you're high school or Fisher football, let's say. Like,
it's crazy how much has changed and how much of a commodity it is now. Like, I mean, the facilities at St. John Fisher University are world class. There's a reason they keep coming back.
And let's point out too, like, he gets, you look at the legacy of Russ Brandon and it's mixed, right? How it ended, but he deserves credit for bringing the team here. Like, who thought of that? They didn't even have Groundy Stadium when they had to go legitimately build Groundy Stadium and figure that out. And it was right at the time when Fisher football started getting good. So the idea that Fisher has been able to keep it all this time, we've been able to keep it. Rochester's just far enough away from Buffalo to make it feel like, okay, I'm out of town, but you're not. Right.
It's not quite Maui.
No,
Rams, but
no, that's a joke. The instead of mini camp, the Maui camp. Okay,
lucky them. But hey, if you're the Bills, you get to go to St. John Fisher University, which is basically the next best prize besides Maui.
We've got PJ Glasser coming up at the bottom of the hour. We've got the story, Tim, that the Tampa Bay Rays could be for sale. All right, so the story is this, and if you follow the Rays situation, they had a deal in place. Sternberg, the owner, and this has been years in the making, right? And if you're familiar with that, the Gulf side of Florida, Tampa, St. Pete, majority of people live in Tampa. St. Pete's kind of this retirement community. So how did that dome end up in St. Pete in the first place? I don't know. It'd be like putting a stadium, for the Buffalo Bills in Batavia. Maybe that's not the best example, but you're away from Buffalo, right? Well, you had a deal in place to build something new in St. Pete with a lot of development. And then this hurricane comes through, hurricane ripping off the roof of the current Tropicana field. And with the hurricane comes all these other costs. Insurance that doesn't cover it. Well, the deal falls apart. And I don't blame lawmakers in Florida for saying, you know what, we can't do this. Oh, my gosh, the price of steel is going to go up. This is going to go up. And the deal completely falls apart. Now, you have a team that's so in flux that they didn't have anywhere to go. You couldn't fix the roof in time. That's why they're playing at Legends Field, but that's a 1-year deal. So we're not even clear. Let's stop right here. We're not even clear. We think this is the plan, but nobody's saying this. They're hopeful that the Tropicana field for the Rays next year will be fixed in time. And if not fixed in time, maybe the Rays start on an extended road trip. So think about that, like where the Rays going to play in 2026. We push that to the side for just a second because seemingly out of nowhere today, Major League Baseball is per Sportico. Patrick Salupka, he is a Florida real estate developer. He's based out of Jacksonville. He's negotiating for this team $1.7 billion. Has signed a letter of intent. To me, let's stop there. 1.7. I say that a lot, don't I? 1.7 billion seems a little low for any major league franchise right now. But if he's got other investors coming in, this is where it's one of those choose your own adventure kind of stories. All right. So the previous owner gets fed up, realizes I can't get a deal done to build the stadium in Tampa or St. Pete or whatever. Sternberg, I don't want to be the villain. I don't want to move this team. I will be vilified if I move this team. This is going to be somebody else's problem. I'm out.
Right.
Okay, so this is where the choose your own adventure ending comes.
You give it up. You quit on the team.
Yeah, but is this new owner coming in to broker a deal? Is he part of the development team in Orlando that's ready to kind of, or does he realize, you know what? Yeah, I'll just kind of pretend, and then move some point to Nashville or wherever it is. Because guess what? if you're buying for $1.7 billion in Tampa and you could move this somewhere else that you could actually make more money,
Right.
there's a lot of
I think
things
that's
at play.
where that's headed,
Yeah.
but it's going to take some time. That said, do you refinance, do you refurbish a stadium just to keep them around for a year or two? I think you just kind of bail out as soon as it's possible.
Yeah.
If you have to do all the renovations and fix that stadium just to pull them out,
it's not. See, that's not a raise thing. That's this is our lease. You, whatever, is it Pinellas County? I don't know. Whatever the county is down there, you've got to fix this. We've got 2 years left on our deal. So the government, the local entity down in St. Petersburg, they're screwed. Okay, you got to do it. Now, there was some talk, Tim, that when this originally happened, all right, do we want to fix this roof or apply it to the new stadium we're going to build? Well, they made that decision. Right? Okay, well then we're not going to build the stadium. So does that kind of what you're saying re-enter? Like, okay, you know what? Let's sit back down. Let's figure this out. Let's build the stadium here in St. Petersburg. Can we have the same deal? Is it really worth it? Then I'm sure that Major League Baseball will kind of step in, as you're kind of describing, and find some sort of temporary home. Call me crazy.
crazy.
Thank you. I kind of like the idea of the split. That's dead. Having the Rays play there, in an outdoor stadium when it's, April, May, and then again in September, and having the team up here in Montreal.
That would be exciting,
but
there's
never
no way
happen.
it's not feasible. You can't get the players to buy into that either.
Nope.
It's a fun thought, but there's no way to logistically do it.
No. I just personally want the Expos back, personally. But we've got PJ Glassier, host of Send It In on the BetMGM network. We'll talk about tomorrow night's Game 6. We'll also get his plays for baseball. PJ Glassier coming. Oh, and Jair Alexander signing with the Ravens. We'll start out of the gate. PJ Glassier coming up next year on the Fan Rochester.
Rochester Sports Update.
Bills training camp schedule for St. John Fisher is out. There will be 11 practices that are open to the public. Steve Tasker says this is the perfect setup.
McDermott loves going over there. Gets their team away. They live together, meet together, eat together. They're in dorm rooms together. It's a great team building avenue for the team. And that for a team that values culture the way they do, I think they're going to stay there for the foreseeable future. As long as McDermott's here, they're going to go there for at least a week.
Camp opens 5 weeks from today on Wednesday, July the 23rd. Baltimore Ravens signing free agent corner Jair Alexander. We will talk to PJ Glasser, noted Raven fan. He joins us next year in the Sports Bar. Red Wings looking to make it 2 in a row tonight. They're at Lehigh Valley. Oklahoma City favored by 6.5 tomorrow night on the road. Tyrese Halliburton for Indiana. A game-time decision. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Well, if your phone went nuts here, like Tim and I, for us in Rochester, a flash flood warning. I've never had one of these on my phone here, Tim. So I figured, if they're putting it on the phone, why don't we pass it on to you? This is the emergency alert. This is a dangerous and life-threatening situation. Do not attempt to travel unless you're fleeing an area. Turn around. Don't drown.
You got to respect it. If the phone is buzzing that heavily for you, take it serious.
Yeah, take it serious. So our number 866-4FAN, 866-4326. More of your calls here in a little bit. I call him our betting expert, but he's also noted Raven fan. And PJ, the first thing I read today, Lamar Jackson, they're looking for vengeance. And now Jair Alexander. That's going to make week 1 all the more interesting. Ravens and Bills. PJ, how are you today, my friend?
Doing good, Gene. I'm doing good. Yeah, that was some good news as a Ravens fan, getting Jair today. Obviously, Lamar yesterday was at one of the pressers, and he was telling the GM, Eric DeCosta, to go out and get Jair, who's his buddy. They played at Louisville together, and he took a pay cut. They signed him to a 1-year, $4 million deal. There's some incentives where he can get $6 million. But he obviously took a pay cut to come to the Ravens to play with his good buddy Lamar, try to win a Super Bowl. So, the secondary looks great. You got Nate Wiggins and Jair. You got Marlin at the slot, Hamilton and Starks out of Georgia, who was their first-round pick at safety. So they have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. They have one of the best rosters in the NFL, Gene, even before Jair, right? So, there's no doubting how good of a team they have. It's just all about whether or not they can make the plays in January.
Yeah, well, one of those plays in January, catch a pass there on a 2-point conversion. Who knows where that game might have ended up. PJ, if somebody asked me the question about the Bills, all right, what would it take for the Bills to get over the top and actually reach the Super Bowl this year? I would say it's easy. It's on the defense, and they're trying to address that. It's a little leaky. You need more big playmakers. If I asked you that same question, what is it going to take for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens to get over the hump? What would your answer be?
It's simple, Gene. It's simple. They got to run the football. That's all it is. There's no magic science. It's no player they need to go out and get. It's just running the ball. I go back to the game against the Steelers in the wild card round, and it's the best playoff game Lamar has played. It's the best playoff game the Ravens have played since he's taken over. And the reason for it, if you go back and watch that game, the amount of times Henry ran the ball, Lamar ran the ball, that's the MO. I can't tell you the amount of Ravens-Steelers game I've seen over the last 5-6 years where the Ravens have had the better team, but the Steelers find ways to win those games because they always win the turnover battle, right? It's a lot like what we see out of the Ravens in the playoffs where they just commit turnovers and they just, get in their own way and they beat themselves. That's always what they do against the Steelers. But for the first time against Pittsburgh in 5 years, Gene, I saw them run the ball and I saw them commit to it. And the key is that they ran it with Lamar. And that's all I've ever wanted for the last 5-6 years is for them to run the ball. You think about ways that they've lost in the playoffs, right? Whether it was both years when they had the number 1 seed against Tennessee back in 2019, when Lamar had to throw it 56 times, they abandoned the run. Then, of course, the game against the Chiefs in the AFC title game, they only gave it to the running back 6 times. The game against the Bills, They had 3 turnovers. Lamar had a fumble. He had an interception. Andrews obviously the fumble. But Lamar didn't have a single design run in that game against Buffalo.
Wow.
Gee, he's the greatest rushing quarterback of all time. It's like Steph Curry not shooting a three-pointer in the postseason. Should never happen. So, a lot of people don't talk about that. They think I'm crazy when I say they should move on from Harbaugh, and I've obviously had that conversation with you guys. But that's the thing, is they just don't understand how to win with Lamar in the playoffs. They keep thinking that they have to play the same way they did with Flacco, where they have to go 4 or 5 wide, air raid, but they got to run. And that's how they lose in the playoffs every year, is they just don't run enough and they don't commit to it, and that's their problem. And if they do that, I think that'll finally get them over the hump.
PJ Glass, your host, is Send It In on the BetMGM network. He's also doing double duty this week with Ryan Horvath. You can hear him tonight beginning at 7 here on the Fan Rochester as part of BetMGM tonight. PJ, this is one of those games where I'm tapping on the brakes here just a little bit. Guide us through here, because yesterday I was looking at some of the lines, just, straight up. Okay, OKC on the road, Game 6. We've got Halliburton, who clearly isn't right. Wait, I'm only giving 4.5. That line in some places has gone to 6.5. That looks a little fishy to me. I would think OKC would cover this. So now I'm second guessing myself. PJ, how do you view the matchup tomorrow night, Game 6, Thunder and Pacers?
Yeah, spread and even the total, Gene, is interesting. 221.5, that's by far the lowest total we've gotten. We got 224.5 in Game 5, which was the lowest total we got by 3 points, and that obviously goes over. So, the Halliburton injury is definitely driving both markets. There's a lot of unknown going into Game 6. I haven't bet anything yet, Gene, just because I kind of do want to see what his status is. If he is ruled out, I would assume we get a 7. If he is ruled in, I would expect us to go back to 5.5, 6. Regardless of what it is, Gene, I'm going to bet Indiana plus the points. I'm probably going to take some money line as well. Look, as great as OKC is, and they're the best team in the NBA, and they're probably going to win this series, Gene, they've only covered one game against the spread on the road this postseason, just one game. And that game that they covered was actually in Game 4 against Indiana, and I'm still trying to figure out how they covered that spread. It was amazing that they won the game, let alone covered that game, and won by 7. So OKC has just been two totally different teams on the road and at home, and Indiana's obviously been really good at home this postseason. So even without Halliburton, Gene, McConnell was maybe the best player on the floor for him in that second half to help engineer that comeback and make it, a little pressure on OKC to finish off that game. So this is one of the strengths of Indiana. This is what's got them here, is how good their bench is, how great their depth is, and that even though Halliburton is their best player, they don't really rely on him like the Nuggets rely on Jokic, like the Bucks rely on Giannis, and so forth. So I like Indiana tomorrow. I'm just waiting to see if Halliburton's ruled out, so maybe we get an even bigger number. But give me the Pacers, Gene, outright. I think we're getting a Game 7 between OKC and Indy.
Nice. We would love a Game 7, nothing more, PJ. That would set up a really nice Sunday of sports here. Just kind of a question here because, in the NFL, this isn't going back all that long, but when you had like a quarterback or some key player that was questionable, Vegas would be like, nope, off the board. We're not going to take that. Like, when did this sort of change? Because if there's ever an instance in the NBA where, hey, this is actually going to matter here, whether if Halliburton's going to be out there and to what degree, when did that kind of change? Is it just more data and, the odds makers feel comfortable kind of putting a line out there, I guess, not knowing?
Yeah, I think so, Gene. And with the NBA, too, we know load management is such a big thing. None of these guys play even 80 games a year, let alone 82. So even though it's the NBA Finals and the intensity is obviously ratcheted a little bit higher, you do see these teams a lot without certain players. So that's driving the market. But it is the Finals, so why they are a little bit cautious that maybe Halliburton either doesn't play or doesn't play his normal minutes or isn't as effective. It is the Finals, and adrenaline is a powerful thing. Gene, the Stanley Cup Final wraps up yesterday, and Paul Maurice is talking about all the injuries that the Panthers have, right? It's unbelievable what some of these guys were playing through. Now, I understand hockey player toughness is a completely different breed, but again, these guys, what they're willing to sacrifice, especially when you get to this point. I would be surprised if Halliburton doesn't play tomorrow, right? It's Game 6. You made it this far. It's the finals. You're at home. Like, he would dream, like, he probably wouldn't have to be – he probably wouldn't be walking, like, for him to be out of this game. So I would expect him to play again, though. How effective is he is a different question. But, yeah, I just think, recently because of the NBA and kind of where the sport's headed and the load management, I think it's probably different than some of these other sports.
PJ, like when we had talked to you on Wednesdays, it's always Getaway Wednesday in the majors, and we got games in action and who knows how many. This is the rare Wednesday when we're talking right now, and we've yet to have a first pitch in any of these games. 4:10 for the first one, Boston and Seattle. Everything else is under the lights tonight. So we have an array of games for your suggestions. What do you like tonight in Major League Baseball?
All right, Gene, I like the Rockies. Didn't think I'd ever say that sentence in 2025, but I like the Rockies tonight at plus 130 trying to sweep the Nationals, and it's more so a fate of the Nats, who are right now the worst team in baseball. They've lost 10 in a row, and, Gene, this is just a dead team walking. Like, it reminds me a lot of my Orioles early on in the season, where they just are abysmal, and it's just only a time before their manager gets fired, and that's where we're at right now with the Nationals. And I think until they fire their manager, Davey Martinez, you have to continue to fade them. Even against the Rockies, it's honestly best to fade them against the Rockies because that's probably the only team they're going to be favored against these days. So Colorado's already won the first 2 games of this series. They hit 7 home runs yesterday. Gene, the Nats are lifeless right now, and the fan base is turning on them fast. The Boo Birds were out last night at Nats Park. It's going to be ugly. And if the Rockies get off to a hot start today like they have in the first 2 games, I don't think the Nats are going to come back. So give me Colorado to get the sweep there at plus 130. I like the over today, Gene, in Twins and Reds. Good hitting weather out in Cincinnati. You got the wind kind of blowing out in already a great hitter's ballpark. But we have Nick Lodolo on the mound tonight for Cincinnati. Gino, he's got some insane home and road splits. He's got like a 2.82 ERA when he's on the road. His ERA is close to 5.85 when he pitches at home. So I don't quite think that maybe the odds makers are accounting for the splits. I think this should more so be towards 9.5, 10. I'll take the over 9 in Twins and Reds. And then final play for me is going to be the Astros as well on the run line, minus 1.5 at plus 100. I just told you Lodolo splits. Severino going for the Athletics tonight, team. His might be as drastic as anybody. He's got an ERA like sub-2 on the road. It's near 7 when he pitches at home. We know Sacramento overs this year have been a great thing. So I like the Astros tonight to take care of business against the A's. I would look to bet them on the run line.
Yeah, you're based down in the Beltway, PJ, and for Washington, you're an O's fan, but certainly you're there with that quote last week by Dave Martinez. That just says, I want to be fired. Go ahead. The way I read that, like, it's never on the managers. It's not on the play. Like, it's rare to hear a manager kind of throw his players under the bus because the players, if they're not doing what they want to do, that's on you, buddy.
100%. And look, I mean, Gene, we know the Nats are in the rebuild, right? They got rid of Soto. They traded him away 3 years ago, but they've really been in this rebuild for almost like 5 years when they got rid of Scherzer and Turner at that deadline and traded him to the Dodgers. And, this is the year that people wanted to start seeing results. Obviously, they're in a tough division. The National League in a whole is just a beast. So it was always going to be a tough task to make the playoffs. But people wanted to see progression. They wanted to see this team compete. And even though they have a budding superstar in James Wood, Mackenzie Gore's a really nice pitcher, I mean, this team's going backwards, Gene. Again, they've lost 10 in a row. They got embarrassed last night by the Rockies, and it's a matter of time before Dave Martinez gets canned. So, telling you, like, this team, it's just they have feels of what the Orioles were like at the beginning of the year, where the expectations are one thing. You're going through this losing streak. The fan base is miserable. The team is lifeless, and it's just only a matter of time before the manager gets canned. And until he does, Gene, I mean, the Nats are doing us a favor, and we just continue to fade them every night. So give me the Rockies.
Yeah, that's and for everybody, for everybody down there, because we get a front row to this. Everybody coming up here, your AAA team, like, it's a fun experience to go to the ballpark. The team itself sucks. They lost 12. They just had their 12-game losing streak snapped last night. Your best player, House, he goes up. There's nothing else here. I'm telling you, the system is if it's a rebuild, it's pretty barren. You need to get better people, pump some money into this, and furthermore, it's a stunt when you call up the bat dog. Hey, you're like the Nationals are a minor league team if you're doing a stunt like that, PJ.
Gene, it's a nightmare, and it all starts from the top, right? How many times do we talk about this, especially in baseball with these small market teams that aren't going to get these prize free agents? You got to have a good owner and you got to have a good GM. And look, Mike Rizzo, he constructed a World Series team, and the Nats had some really good teams there for about 5 or 6 years. But during this rebuild, even though they won the Soto trade, they got some good players out of that, just have not been able to build around that. And again, he's been there close to 15 years. You wonder if his time has kind of run its course. The owners, the Lerner family, they've been trying to sell that team for a couple of years now, and they just can't find any buyers for it. So you got a cheap ownership group, an owner family that really doesn't want to be there, a GM that probably should be gone. But, the owners, do they really want to pay another GM? Well, they got one foot out the door. It's a mess, Gene, from top to bottom in that organization. And, again, it just doesn't help with the division that they play in. The Mets and Phillies aren't going anywhere, and the Braves still have a bunch of talent. They're obviously having a lost season too, but it's not looking good for the Nats there, Gene.
Yeah, last one, PJ. We've got we're back to just the regular PGA Tour this week, and one of the normal stops. So we're going to the Travelers in Connecticut. Scotty Scheffler is the defending champ here. So you follow golf. Any guys that you're keeping an eye on this week?
Really like Justin Thomas this week, Gene, at 25-1. If there's a course that Thomas is playing at where he's got to use his driver a lot of the time, like he did at Oakmont, he's always a great fade. He's one of the worst players with his driver. He's wildly inaccurate. When Thomas goes to a course, Gene, where he doesn't have to use the driver, like he won't have to this week at the Travelers, it's the third shortest course on the PGA Tour. They're going to use their wedges about 45% of the time. That's where Justin Thomas excels. When he's fairway in, when he doesn't have to play off the tee, he's one of the best players in the world, and that's what we're getting this week. He won earlier this season at the RBC Heritage down in Harbortown, which is a Pete Dye designed golf course, just like they're playing this week. Shorter golf course. It's screaming Thomas to me, Gene, so I really like him. And then a guy that I'm betting to finish top 20 is going to be Patrick Cantlay. Gene, the last 7 years Cantlay has played at this course. He's finished no worse than 15th. Last 2 years, he's finished top 5. Anybody who follows golf knows that Cantlay really hasn't been in contention the last couple of years, but there are just like 3 or 4 courses every year, regardless of where his game's at. He just shows up and he plays well there every year. This is one of those. So you're getting like minus 125 for him to finish top 20. You're getting a good plus 160, top 10 if you want to go that route. But Thomas is my guy to win. I like Cantlay as well. And then Sam Burns, Sepp Straka, 30-1. 2 other golfers I would keep an eye on as well this week.
PJ Glasser, host of Send It In. PJ, tell everybody about Send It In and what you got coming up tonight here. We can check out 7 o'clock here in the Fan Rochester for BetMGM tonight.
Yeah, Gene, 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Fridays. You can check out my show, Send It In. We stream it live on the BetMGM network, Twitch, YouTube, on X as well. And it's a fast-paced, quick 30-minute show, no commercial breaks. We love when people chime in, ask us questions about any bets that they have, or just any questions they have about the baseball slate, NFL futures, whatever it may be. So it's a lot of fun. And then Horvat and myself tonight, we're going to dive into a little bit of everything. Obviously, preview Game 6 tomorrow night, OKC and Indiana. Ryan and I are huge college football people, so we've been kind of diving into the Big Ten a little bit. We'll continue to do that on the show as well, and then talk some NFL and then some golf as well as we continue previewing the Travelers. So a lot going on tonight's BetMGM Tonight show.
Yeah, you guys are our nighttime companions here in Rochester. Really appreciate the time as always, PJ. Let's do this again next week. Thanks so much, buddy.
Yes, sir, Gene. Always good being with you.
Thanks. PJ Glasser, your host to Send It In on the BetMGM network. Let's take a quick break here, Tim. We'll come back and kind of reset things here as I want to talk a little bit more about the NBA and Rick Carlisle. Like, if he's able to pull this off,
This would be an all-timer.
This would be an all-timer. Let's discuss this. 866-4FAN, 866-4326.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Yeah, what if Oklahoma City doesn't get this done? Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Battaglia and Schneider today. Danger is out this week. He's out next week. But you know what? You're here. It's great that you're with us. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. I mean, if you're at Carlisle, if you need that inspirational quote, nobody thinks they can do this. They're professionals. You've got your home floor. Like, if anything, if Game 6 was in Oklahoma City, I'd be like, I'm not feeling too good about this. But the fact that you're home, if you could figure out how do we get this done in a Game 7, then can you have a Game 6 to get it to a Game 7? For that reason, if Halliburton is nothing here, you save that bullet there for Game 7. Meaning, if you're just going to have him out there as inspirational or have him trot out like Willis Reed, you do that for a Game 7. Figure out a way to win without him Game 6. When I heard P.J. Glasser just say, I'm taking the Pacers and the points, okay, that solidifies what I was thinking. Like, this seems a little too low here, 6.5 here for OKC.
I'm really surprised that the spread hasn't really moved as much as it probably should have. That said, people are buying in on this going 7. So
yeah,
there's some sense there. This, to me, would be maybe not as impressive as the 3-1 Cavs over Golden State comeback, but definitely more improbable, just based on the circumstances around it. Like, LeBron James can win 3 games in a row.
But what was impressive about that was the Warriors, number 1. And number 2, you had to win 5 and 7 on the road.
Right.
That, like, as far as comebacks in the finals, that's right there. That's good. This would not top that, but the circumstances of, like, can a coach win an NBA championship? This is Carlisle's opportunity here.
You can throw some, maybe not odds like Vegas odds, but you'd give, Cleveland a 15% chance to come back from 3-1?
Yeah.
I'm giving Indiana a 5 or 10% chance to come back from down 3-2, especially with the circumstances surrounding their best player, Tyrese Halliburton. Like, if he's not able to go, people are still projecting. PJ Glasser has the Pacers winning with or without Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah. It's
ballsy,
good, yeah.
but there's a chance.
But if you're doing the betting standpoint, okay, I'm going to get 6.5. It's funny, like how the variance in this would be. Like it would go from 7.5 to 5.5. It just seems
that's one basket.
Right. It's and the idea that this is the lowest total on so far we've had in this matchup. So always great getting PJ's insight. We're going to talk some hockey coming up next hour with our guy Joe Yurden from the Bleacher Report. Always love catching up with Joe. As the NHL season is done, the off season is coming like a freight train. It will be here next week. We've got the draft coming up. We've got free agency July 1st. A lot of things. Will we have more trades? Where do the Sabres go from here? Joe Yurden will join us coming up next hour. I kind of want to revisit like where Edmonton went wrong. We'll talk about that coming up next. He is Tim Schneider. My name is Gene Battaglia. You're welcome to join us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326 here on The Fan Rochester.
Rochester, it's the wake-up call your snooze button has been dreading. WROC AM, WBEE HD2, and W239BF Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Buffalo Bills training camp schedule is out for St. John Fisher, looking a lot like last year. Chris Brown today on One Bills Live.
July 23rd is the first practice of training camp, but Buffalo will hold 11 total practices in Rochester to prepare for the 2025 season. The return of the blue and red will take place on August 1st at 5:30 p.m. at Highmark Stadium.
Wednesday, July 23rd. That is 5 weeks from today. The Baltimore Ravens fortifying their defense today. They signed free agent corner Jair Alexander. Alexander released earlier this month by the Packers. Red Wings look to make it 2 in a row tonight. They play at Lehigh Valley. Red Sox at Seattle. That's coming up in a few minutes. The rest of the action under the lights tonight in Major League Baseball. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Down to the final 5 seconds. Rats rain down. Lord Stanley staying in South Florida. Last year was greatness. This time it's historic. The Florida Panthers are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
Sam Bennett, your Conn Smythe winner.
I tore my adductor off the bone, and that had some hernia thing.
Connor McPhail. Tyrese Halliburton will likely be listed as questionable for tomorrow night's Game 6 of the finals.
A ring is a team accomplishment.
Caitlin Clark hits the deck.
When the officials don't get control of the ball game, this is what happens.
Mike Danger.
Usually when I'm gone, that's when news breaks.
Gene Battaglia.
I will pay money.
Bills training camp will start July 23rd.
Touchdown Ravens!
Jair Alexander.
I don't like the Yankees.
The Yankees have dropped 5 straight, shut out in 3 straight.
Braves rallied by the Mets 5-4-10.
Go Braves.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Dan DeLorean still angry I didn't pay him any money
Trying to
for
get that
flying.
paycheck.
Trying to that paycheck. I just, I thought it would be funny maybe. Who carries around, like, cash anymore? I'm being honest. Like,
I haven't carried cash since COVID.
It's shocking, like, when you go into a place, cash only. Like, what? But the thing is, Tim, I do have cash sometimes, and if I'm going to a restaurant knowing they're working their tail off.
Yeah.
When I say restaurant, I'm not talking about the chain. The corporation, you don't need to save them, but if it's a locally owned business, you pay cash. That's just the right thing to do.
My dad always carries cash. Maybe that's a generational thing because I just don't carry cash. It's custom for me to just pull out the card and call it a day. But I understand the mindset.
Yeah, well, even so, like it used to be, okay, you are going out with your buddies and let's split the tab. Okay, cash. No, it's like, okay, Venmo.
I lost credit card roulette 3 times in one day last week.
That's a you problem.
You're right.
I did that once. I will never do it again. And if somebody says credit card roulette, I respectfully decline. And if you're not familiar with credit card roulette, and I don't care, like I'm not playing. Credit card roulette is you take 3 credit cards under the table and you're kind of working them around like you're looking blindly, and then somebody pulls it out. It's one way to kind of do it, but like you can kind of figure out what your credit card is if you really knew by the edges or whatever.
We handed it to a stranger and let him pick a card, and I was 0 for 3. I was so bad that I borrowed somebody else's card just to see if they were just picking the same one over and over.
Yeah.
I used a fake card. I was the standby for somebody else's card. I lost that one too. 0 for 3. Very expensive night.
Seeing that we don't have any Amherst hockey and really your hours here at the Fan Rochester are drying up, that's kind of an issue.
Working for free today, I think.
Well, you have to wait till July 23rd. Segue. Yeah, that's what we have, the date for Bill's training camp. We will talk about that. Certainly, we will take your calls, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We'll talk about in the hour with our buddy Joe Yurden from Bleacher Report, noted hockey, as the season is over, but we've already kind of jumped to storylines, and one of them being, all right, Florida, are they a dynasty? Hey, anytime you make the Cup Finals 3 years in a row and you won the last 2, yes, And the thing is, can they separate themselves from Tampa? Because people are just lumping this in as, the state of Florida dynasty. Like, you went from the Lightning. Now, and the Lightning are still okay, but I don't see any signs of a slowdown here. With the Lightning, you saw kind of coming to an end. With Florida, there's no reason to think they won't be in the conversation right there at the end next year. Some of the odds makers, I hate that preseason nonsense. Like, as soon as the champ, who's the favorite next year? Okay,
they're already out there.
Yeah, they're already out there, and they already have Edmonton. Okay, whatever. That's just kind of to get you to, it's clickbaity in my opinion.
I know that you're no longer following the Calder Cup, but there's a chance that they get the Stanley Cup and the Calder Cup because Charlotte's the affiliate, and they're right there.
Yeah, so Charlotte, they mow down. Mow down Hershey, mow down Laval. Yeah, there's no reason to think that they won't take care of the Abbotsford.
They're down 2-1 and got throttled yesterday, but I think that might have been because they were celebrating a Stanley Cup with their teammates.
So you have the Florida storyline. You also have this Edmonton storyline. And the Edmonton storyline is, hey, that's 2 years in a row you couldn't get over. Hey, there's an obvious deficiency on this team. It's goaltender. Why didn't you fix that? You really thought that was the plan? You really thought that was going to get Connor McDavid? He's kind of our Draisaitl. A lot of these guys are kind of walking away scot-free on this. They're not going to get the blame. It'll be management. It'll be the goaltending certainly. But it was Steve Levy who originally brought this up. Like, okay, do the Oilers swing a trade for Connor McDavid, knowing that he's entering the last year of his deal? This is normally when you would do it, when you can kind of get a return. We were joined yesterday by Dennis Bernstein for the fourth period, also host the pregame on SiriusXM for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And Dennis kind of lays it out right here, the reasons why Connor McDavid won't follow in the footsteps, say, of a Wayne Gretzky.
Do you think Leon Draisaitl had a conversation with Connor McDavid when he signed in Edmonton for 8 years? I think he did. His wife, Connor's wife, just opened a high-end bar in Edmonton last week. So I'm not sure about that. Here's a more likely scenario of Connor leaving. You win game 6 and 7. If you leave in 2 years, nobody will ever begrudge you. You came in 11 years, 10 years, did the job. I think it's more likely he would leave if he won than he lost, because the type of player and person that I know he is, and I don't know him that well, he doesn't want to leave without finishing the job. And Leon's going to be there for another 8 years, and you know that Bowman's go out and he's going to try a different way. Go get a goaltender that you can trust. Guys, here's the thing. You got to get a goalie. You got to get a guy you can trust. And maybe it's Stu Skinner. So I think it's more likely that it kind of wins than he loses, that he would leave Edmonton.
Wow, there's a lot in there. First, let's just pick out the goalie thing. It's like Dennis foreshadowing last night. And when you're down 2-0, the third goal, I'm like, oh, come on. Like, it's a shot that bounces off the shoulder, but you're leaving this big old fat rebound. Like, you're not going to be able to win. Let's push that aside. Does Edmonton, I'm sure they're getting calls, but ultimately, this is McDavid's decision. If McDavid went to management and said, yeah, I'd be open to it, but I don't see that. So what has to happen here, Tim, in my opinion, it's clear. You got to offer the money right now. You've got to get this done right now. If you just put an end to it, and when you're Connor McDavid, how you are now in a position with leverage, meaning, all right, how are we improving this roster? Please tell me. Connor McDavid shouldn't show any loyalty to these two guys that were in goal by any chance.
Right. Hockey keeps it very close to the vest, so there might be some inner workings going on, but the fact that it hasn't come public, that they haven't offered a 12-year, $200 million contract or whatever the hockey equivalent of a max deal is crazy, because he should be locked up. He should be a career Oiler if the Oilers actually care about their franchise. They were gifted the greatest talent in hockey history, and it is interesting how different the narrative is. Like, we're talking Dynasty Florida. Mm-hmm. Edmonton's been right there, too. They just haven't gotten it done. It's not quite a dynasty, but, they're a really, really good team that just doesn't have the trophies for it.
I thought it was going to be Dallas.
So did I.
Yeah, I thought for sure.
For 3 years in a row, I thought it was going to be Dallas.
Now in Dallas,
and Edmonton's the one right there that doesn't have anything to show for it either. Dallas just got rid of their coach. Does Edmonton really make the move to get rid of the greatest player?
No.
It's tough to do it. You've got to extend a 10, 12 career contract. Whatever the money is, you find the dollar amount, keep him around. But you do it now. What are we waiting for?
I just had a second here. You ever go to Grok or any of these AI things and you just draw this? I try this. Draw Rochester, New York skyline in the year 2050, and it's wow, we have a lot of development. I had no idea that
NBA team again.
Yeah, NBA team, everything that would happen. I just did this. Draw Connor McDavid as a Buffalo Sabre, and this is what it spit out. They're wearing the home white, the traditional. This isn't a throwback. It's what they're currently wearing. The look on Connor McDavid's face, it's so sad and forlorn. It's I'm sure there's a photo of him somewhere along this.
It's too real.
It's too real. He looks absolutely sad to be a Buffalo Sabre. So I put that on my Twitter. It's at Gene Battaglia. He's at Womfump. Don't get me to explain that.
Same.
Yeah. Fun with AI, I labeled it. Peter, here's some fun with AI. And it's a picture of me with a headset on wearing a Joe Namath jersey as a Jet fan.
That looks real to me. Are you sure that's AI? That looks like that's you. You
it makes me look like I'm 5'2".
You could be wearing that right now. I see on this AI. I see Gene Battaglia.
The funny thing is, the AI thing, it doesn't say 95.7 The Fan. The logo just says Sports Radio.
Sports Radio, name
Sports
Jets.
Radio, Jets. Peter. Actually,
perfect.
The thing that was funny about that, Peter, is we're at a commercial break, and it's rare that Tim will start laughing out loud. And what? He's like, look, that's great.
I do not laugh out loud very often. That got me. And then Gene had to see it, and here we are. That actually looks like that could be a real version of you. AI is too true.
That is, it could be. What would I do for Tim? Maybe I'll just try that. Draw Tim Schneider as Steeler fan.
Oh, no.
No, but who would be the team?
I did have a Jerome Bettis jersey growing up, though. Does that count?
Why did you have a Jerome Bettis jersey?
The Browns didn't exist, and he was my fantasy football running back. I was a Jerry Rice and Jerome Bettis fan.
I had Jerome Bettis as a running back for the Rams.
That
was.
I'm old enough to know,
LA,
but not old enough to remember.
Yeah, he was at the bus. That was,
Great.
He came to Rochester a few years ago for one of those Compeer dinners, shook his hand. Oh my gosh. It's fully engulfed.
He's two human hands on one hand.
Thanks, very nice to meet you, Mr. Bettis. Very nice. Thank you for coming to Rochester.
Very humbling experience. Yes.
Yeah. The top story in the NFL today is Jair Alexander going to Baltimore.
The rich get richer.
Yeah,
they always find a way.
Well, you forget the storyline here. He was college teammates with Lamar Jackson.
Sure was.
So the Ravens, they get him on a deal because I'm always leery of the 1 year, $6 million. First of all, that's a deal, right? In my opinion, that is a deal with a capital D. That Jair Alexander, Baltimore got him for a $6 million deal, but then you realize, wait a second, $2 million of that is incentives. It's actually a lot less.
$4 million cap hit for what could be an all-pro.
The problem for Buffalo is this. That's the weakness, in my opinion, of the Ravens. PJ Glatt, I love PJ. And I understood what PJ was saying earlier because I asked him the question. Okay, because if I'm saying this for the Bills, what will it take for Buffalo to get over the top? The answer to me is simple. Defense, stop being leaky. We need another playmaker or two. That happens, I like Buffalo's chances to get the needed stop when they're going to be called upon in the postseason. For the Baltimore Ravens, yes, Kyle Hamilton is a fantastic safety. But corner 2 has always been kind of a mess for that team. They had Trey White last year, and this is Trey White coming off when he was cut by the Rams. Those were the options they were down to. So for Baltimore, where PJ said, run the ball, they run the ball very well with Derrick Henry, but I get what he was saying. Like in the playoff game, that game plan against the Bills was nonsense.
Right.
If you're just talking from a player personnel standpoint, I think the Ravens helped themselves immensely today by signing Alexander.
Designed runs from Lamar Jackson and another great defensive player on a team that already has a solid defense. They got him for next to nothing. I know that he was rumored to Buffalo before he was cut, but that would have been very expensive. He was due $17 or $18 million. Buffalo could have got him as a free agent. He took less money to go hang out with Lamar Jackson than I don't know if the Bills were involved, but he took a lesser deal from Baltimore than he did other teams. I don't know what the other teams were, but he left money on the table to go back to Lamar Jackson and his Louisville teammate.
He was going to make $17.5 million with the Packers this year. None of that was guaranteed. So is this the rare instance, Tim, where because I'm sure the Packers were trying to get the number to go down and became kind of a pride thing?
Perhaps
when
the money's that high, though, it makes sense to cut ties.
I get that, but my point is like $17.5 million. Okay, would you stay if we guaranteed this for 10? Like Jair Alexander took a pay cut. Like this is the rare instance. I want to go somewhere because that's the team I want to join. And maybe he's so close friends with Lamar Jackson and kind of viewing this from a distance that, hey, Lamar Jackson, MVP 2 years ago, if you want to argue that he would have been the MVP last year, listen, we're the show that will listen to that. Us saying great things about Josh Allen, we're not disparaging Lamar Jackson, and it's not vice versa. Lamar Jackson, top 4 quarterback in this league, okay? Mahomes, Burrow, and then Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Pick your order, yeah.
And they're all in the same conference, Tim. So somebody is the odd man out, and Josh Allen hasn't done it. Joe Burrow did it once, but he didn't win the Super Bowl, so does it really count? And Lamar Jackson, he's now for how many? Like the clock's ticking on him in a lot of minds. But so that's why P.J. Glasser is assessing blame to the head coach for not coming up with a game plan that's necessary. There's going to be a lot of money going on the Ravens now. And the Ravens playing in Buffalo week 1, and now you've got another storyline that kind of goes. I think a lot of this, it gets the Bills to sit up just a little bit straighter. The other thing, too, Lamar Jackson speaking for the first time this offseason says his team has vengeance on their mind.
The Bills were the AFC favorite until this signing. It's now updated, plus 650 for Baltimore, plus 700 for Buffalo.
Really?
From the other two are ahead, but they're NFC team, or the Chiefs are actually there as well. So plus 600. But the Ravens passed the Bills with this signing.
So Chiefs still the favorite, but now the Bills are the fine. That's absolutely fine, because if you think that the Bills care one way or another about this, they don't.
They might regret not getting him, but they don't.
No, I'm saying about the betting lines or whatever. Like the last year, nobody was picking.
If there's
the
a player
Bills
thinking about that, they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's it. So look, some storylines here today, and as we mentioned, the camp schedule for Fisher is out. It's the same as last year, the same as the year before, the same as the year before that. Starting on Wednesday, July 23rd, and it will wrap up the second week in August on a Thursday. And you're going to have 11 camp practices that are open to the public. We will have 9 camp shows, Tim. 9 live from St. John Fisher University. Every practice at 9:45, with the exception of Sunday, August the 1st, which that will be at, I better get that August date correct. Hold on one second. August the 3rd, I'm sorry. 11:15 a.m. Camp breaking on Thursday, August 7th. So if you want tickets, the lottery is going to be
open right now.
Open right now
on their it's right on the Bills website. It takes you to a different link. You pick 3 dates of the 10 that are available, and if you hit, you hit. If you don't, good luck. But there's a way. You can find yourself there.
There's the
Free.
one practice that is going to be closed to the public. That'll be
That's the first.
Yeah, that's the first. No, Friday, August 1st is the return of the blue and red at Highmark Stadium. So that'll be the one that is certainly open to the public, and that's the one that you can get tickets for sure. 5:30 in the afternoon. We have our buddy Joe Yurden from Bleacher Report, noted jerk Joe Yurden. As sure, we'll talk about last night. Yes, we'll talk about McDavid. Where do the Sabres go from here? Does Peterka get dealt? How does the world look like when Mike Danger returns? Those questions and more. G. Battaglia with Tim Schneider today, and you're listening to Rochester's only local sports talk show. Here's the Sports Bar on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Update.
Bill's training camp schedule is out for Fisher. There will be 11 practices open to the public. Steve Tasker says this is the perfect setup.
McDermott loves going over there. Gets their team away. They live together, meet together, eat together. They're in dorm rooms together. It's a great team building avenue for the team. And that for a team that values culture the way they do, I think they're going to stay there for the foreseeable future. As long as McDermott's here, they're going to go there for at least a week.
Camp opens 5 weeks from today, Wednesday, July the 23rd. Baltimore Ravens today signing free agent corner Jair Alexander. Baseball, the Wings look to make it 2 in a row tonight. They play at Lehigh Valley. Only one game in the majors. The Red Sox with the early 1-0 lead at Seattle. They're in the top of the second. Yankees tonight taking on the Angels. Tyrese Halliburton, a game-time decision tomorrow night for Game 6. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
I think I committed sports bar malpractice. Welcome back here to the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you. More of your calls here in a little bit. Danger's out. Tim, I tapped out last night. Long day. I had an early appointment yesterday, and I just got home, and I'm like, this is over. I didn't stay with the third. I was falling asleep. I'm just like, I didn't stay up.
You didn't miss much.
But but from what I heard, like the Gary Bettman Hares, the Serenade of Booze, like that's kind of over with, unfortunately.
I think it passed us by.
Yeah, I think it did.
It'll never stop, but it's no longer as good as it used to be.
Always kind of a bittersweet when the NHL season ends. We're joined now by our good friend Joe Yurden, noted hockey Bleacher Report. Who he's not tapping out. He's watching everything here. Joe, appreciate your time here, and hope you're doing well. And gosh, I look at the Panthers here, and I'm just wondering what's stopping this team from becoming the first team since the New York Islanders of the early '80s to win 3 in a row, Joe.
The salary cap. That might be the one thing to stand in their way, but I mean they've got a handful of pretty big free agents, possible free agents. Sam Bennett's the big one, Aaron Ekblad's another one. These are guys, Brad Marchand, these are guys that are going to be in demand if they make it to July 1st. But I mean, I do wonder if these guys see how good a thing they've got going there. I mean, you win 2 in a row. That's a pretty good thing, for Marchand. It's his first one since the Bruins won in 2011. So, and his career is, we're in the backside of that now. And you do wonder if maybe that, in a guy like Ekblad's case or Bennett's case, you think, maybe green is the color you want to chase, but it's really hard to pass up on what they've got going in Florida. That's as tight a room as I've witnessed in my time, covering the NHL, and we're talking 15 years at this point. So if anything gets in the way of them, it's going to be the salary cap. But man, if I'm those guys, and I got a few days to think about it, running it back again, try to win another one, and put everybody on notice that this might be one of the best teams we've seen in 20, 30, 40 years. That's an opportunity you're not really offered very much.
Yeah, we're friends with Paul Hamilton on our show, and he calls NHL free agency fool's gold. It's like something, and look at the beginning of the Pagula ownership, the tenure when you had guys like Ville Leno you were throwing money around to. This isn't that. These are proven players, so everything will have the Sabres angle to it, these questions, Joe. Could you see the Sabres being on any 3 of those guys that you just mentioned?
Well, I kind of joked around a little bit writing a piece on Sam Bennett for Bleacher Report this week. Teams that might be, that should be interested in him, that should, the short list of teams that should be after him. And I'm pretty convinced that Florida is going to re-sign him. And I think I did put the Sabres on that list as this would be a great, terrible idea for Buffalo, because they're gonna have to, if they're gonna go for a guy like Bennett, they would have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, not just because he's raised his own stock, but because you're asking a guy who's been part of a winning pedigree in Florida now for like 4 or 5 years at this point. and asking him to come to Buffalo, where it's a lot of pressure would be thrown on his shoulders to be like, hey, we got a messed up situation. You got to be the guy to help turn it around. That's a lot. And, the cost of bringing him in and saying like, well, listen, if you want me, it's going to cost you. Like there's a little bit of a tax involved there on top of, New York State taxes and, giving up Palm Tree, the whole thing. But but that's a guy that'd be of interest. But I think if any of those three they're going to go after, it's Ekblad. We've talked for years about getting Owen Power a partner. And if you get Aaron Ekblad, again, you'd have to pay a fortune to pull him out of there. That would cost a lot of money, and you'd be paying a lot of money to three defensemen, on your team. But boy, would he solve a lot of problems like that. You can design a more apt defenseman to want to plug in that top three and put him right next to Owen Power. Let those guys run wild. Dahlin, put anybody with Dahlin, it'll work because Dahlin's incredible. But man, Ekblad's the guy where I look at him and I go, he would solve a lot of problems on the defense. That would stop a lot of questions about like, what are they doing? How are you going to fix this? How are you going to address that? Ekblad fixes a lot of that. But again, he's been in Florida his whole career. He's been one of the the cornerstone guys that's helped bring them from being a joke around the league to being now we're on the precipice of them being a dynasty franchise. Why leave? There's no reason to leave. But again, money can talk, but I do wonder if money talks loud enough for him to want to get out of there.
Yeah, certainly Florida trying to keep it together is an interesting storyline. And then just like last year, Joe, what did the Edmonton Oilers do? And Edmonton was kind of, they're a little hamstrung last offseason. Well, they're going to have to figure out a plan. And, I love storylines where I don't know where this is going. And when it comes to Connor McDavid and his greatness, Joe, the noise is going to get louder and louder here, until he actually gets a new deal in Edmonton. But where do you see Connor McDavid? Are you believing the theory originally by Steve Levy and others that, okay, maybe this is the time if you were ever going to realize we can't re-sign the guy, you got to move him now?
Yeah, I do wonder because Connor's a very loyal guy. I think guys that play, we saw it happen with Gretzky too, where Gretzky was such a massive celebrity in Edmonton and in hockey and the world. Like Gretzky was the first guy to become a celebrity outside of the NHL realm since like Gordie Howe. Even Gordie Howe, I mean, we're talking, 50s, 1950s at that point. So it's not really what it was in the 80s, and it's certainly not what it is now, where McDavid is, he's the face of the league. He's the face of that franchise. And Edmonton's a small place. You can't escape being noticed anywhere you are. And he's the sole reason they are where they are. I mean, Draisaitl's a big part of that, obviously, but Connor's the guy. And there is part of me that you learn what happened with Gretzky and why he ended up in LA and all that. And I mean, Connor hasn't married a supermodel and who had Hollywood designs and there's not an owner out that, the Edmonton owner's not, going bankrupt right. And, looking to recoup costs. None of that situation is not at all similar, but you do wonder if maybe getting somewhere where, he's not, he doesn't have to not that he's wearing disguises when he goes out, but you have a little bit more privacy. You have a little bit more peace and quiet. Yeah, there's a ton of places in the U.S. where that would offer that for him if he wanted to go.
Joe, I and forgive me, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I feel like I have like a lack of knowledge when it comes to just Alberta in general. If you said, hey, describe Vancouver. Okay, well, they host an Olympics. That's cosmopolitan, and certainly Toronto is a mega city, and you have other smaller markets in the league. But what is Edmonton, for that matter, Calgary these days? Are they emerging markets? Is it just a quiet town? How would you describe Edmonton as a place to work and live?
I mean, Edmonton's still pretty small. I mean, it's the oil town of Alberta. Can't compare it to Dallas because Dallas is a massive city, and not even Houston, where Houston's as a city is as big as Rhode Island is. So I mean, they're not comparable in that style. But but the way it's set up, it's a shrunken down version of those places, which, hockey drives the city. Oil gives everybody their money, and that creates the economy, but like hockey drives the city. And it's the same for Calgary. Calgary, it's more, it's the beef industry and cowboys and the rodeo and the stampede and all that stuff there. But it's very, hockey's what it is in Canada, and it's very much the driving force in places like that where it's a lot more remote. Edmonton's really far north, as is Calgary. So, I mean, when you're a superstar player in those places, it's a big deal, and it's very wound tight where you are. Granted, you get outside of that in Canada, it's a little different. You get to any city in Canada, you're going to be well renowned, well known. But it's a lot different in a place like that where it's a bit smaller. The community's very tight, and the fans love the Oilers. We see it every time there's a game in Edmonton, and the fans are just crawling out of the woodwork all over the city to wearing blue and orange. So I mean it's a big deal there, but it whatever you might want in privacy, it's probably greatly minimized in a place like that when you're as big a star as Connor McDavid is, and you're a Canadian.
We'll talk to Joe Urin, Bleacher Report, as the hockey season. Well, I shouldn't say the hockey season, the NHL season. We still have the American Hockey League playoffs, which always confounds me, like how that always goes longer than anything else. Joe, you'll have, if it goes 7, 2 days off between the draft and the game 7 of the AHL final. Sticking with Edmonton here for a second, the obvious question about goaltending. Who's available? How do they fix this? If they say, all right, Connor, here's your new contract, or, hey, you know what, we're going to figure this out after the season, you can't go back in. So who might be available that would be an upgrade for the Oilers, would you say?
Well, the Oilers had an opportunity to get John Gibson out of Anaheim around the deadline, because I believe the story was that Gibson was approached about, because he's been in trade rumors for 3 years now. I think there was a time when Buffalo was one of the teams thrown into the hat to maybe go after him a few years ago. But Edmonton and Carolina were a couple of the teams that were, it's like, hey, listen, if you're gonna trade me, it's okay to trade me to one of these two teams because they could win the Stanley Cup this year. And both teams passed because they're like, nope, we got the guys we believe in. And, listen, trading for a goalie at the deadline can be really difficult because that's such a huge change. And, it's good for a goalie to know who he's working with for a little bit longer than, a month before going to the playoffs. But I have to think, Gibson's a guy that's got to be on the radar for both of those teams, for Edmonton and Carolina, but Edmonton especially. Stuart Skinner was so good last year in the playoffs, and you're thinking, okay, well, that position settled. And then the entirety of this season, there were cracks in that armor. And Skinner, it was a lot of like, I don't know if this is the guy. And they never addressed the position at all. Calvin Pickard, great story for him to be able to, to hop into that saddle and take over for when they needed it. But it's not the answer. And, goaltending, undoing the Oilers again after it being such an issue in years past, has to be so frustrating for everybody involved there. So if they don't, if it's not Gibson, I don't know who you trade for, because teams are hoarding goalies at this point. You're holding on to 2 or 3 guys if you can. And free agency isn't the answer. Alex Lyon's not going to change it. Jake Allen's not going to change it. None of those guys are going to fix it. So you have to make a trade. And, Edmonton's been lighting first-round picks on fire for a couple of years now to try to add to the team, and might have to do it again if you're going to go get Gibson, because, Anaheim seems they've got Lucas Dostal there, so they're looking really good in net, and they can afford to trade Gibson. It's just, Edmonton's got to find a way to make that work, and they've got a clear salary to do it too, because Gibson's not cheap.
No, that's, one of the fun storylines, July 1st. My gosh, Joe, less than 2 weeks. Heck, the draft is essentially a week away here, and it's one thing I kind of not big on, and the NHL, like, this is what has to happen. For that matter, the NBA is exactly the same. But I'm going to ask you the Sabre question this way. How would you describe the best-case scenario for the Buffalo Sabres in terms of improving their roster, what would that checklist look like? What would be all the boxes that would happen here, would you say?
For me, I think I've said this. I think I've said this on the air here for the last couple of years. You have to find a solid top 4 right-handed defenseman, ideally to play with Owen. And it's not because Owen needs the help. It's just it'll settle everything down. Owen's great. It's just he's had a rotating cast of partners here for the last 3 years, and that's really tough. It's really tough because Owen's such a mindful guy, and if a guy wants, if his partner wants to run in deep, then he's going to be like, well, okay, I guess I'll stay back then. But Owen's the guy you want running in deep, and he's, you want him being like Darlene Part 2 out there, and he's, he doesn't let himself do that because of, his partners aren't, are changing constantly. So address that. Make this team tougher. And I know people are going to say like, okay, who's, what guys fight that are out there? No. Find guys that are, it's not copy the notes of the Florida Panthers, but like, I don't know, make it look like you wrote it in your own handwriting, Find some guys that can play both ends of the ice, but have that kind of, bug up their rear end where they make life miserable for everybody else on the ice. It's in a different sweater. Like it's something that the team's needed for a few years now, just for, sticking up for each other purposes. But now it's kind of showing that. I mean, you can't really play this way all 82 games of the season, but like you need it. And they need a presence like that and somebody that's going to be able to kind of bring everybody in the room together to say like, listen, if you're not playing this way, you're never going to win and you got to figure it out. So, someone like that, whether it means, if they draft a player that's got that ability, because there's a couple of them in the draft this year that have that, and just raise the physical presence, because right now this team gets pushed around so easily, and they have for a few years. But now that, you watch Florida do what they do, and some of these other teams play the way they do, Vegas does it too, St. Louis plays that, all these teams that have success push everybody around and kind of act like bullies. Sabres don't have that kind of presence. So they add to that and do that. Those are the biggest things for me. And, they have a lot to contend with right now with the rumors, banging around about J.J. Peterka and Alex Tuck and, Bo Byram is, maybe he's going to be traded or not. Like there's a lot of stuff out there. Choose to believe it if you want, but things seem very unsettled right now. And the key for them is to settle it down and show that, the way forward is going to be up and that they know they have a grasp on what they need to do.
Yeah, I mean, we pointed this out. If you take away the 13-game losing streak, that's not the way the world works, Joe, as you know. So, like, can they get a little more toughness, both physically and mentally? And, one of those things that's not going to help out now, but I keep reading, the Sabres would be open to trading the number 9 overall pick. Like, does that happen all that often? This is in the NFL. Like that's an easier said than done proposition at number 9. But Joe, I haven't even cracked the book, and quite honestly, like we don't follow along. We'll do some reading here, but what can you tell us here about this draft here? Like pick number 9. Is there any hope that there will be anything that could actually step in right here, right now, or you're just looking at somebody that would be, Rochester or maybe even further out than that here?
The way I break it down is I think the top 3 is pretty set. I think Matthew Schaefer, he's either going 1 or 2. Michael Miza's got to go, Matthew Schaefer, the defenseman from Erie. Michael Miza is a high-scoring forward from out of Saginaw in the OHL. They're probably 1, 2. Things get a little squirrely with 3 because I'm not totally positive who Chicago will run with. And they they'll have a lot of options available to them, especially if, either the Islanders or Sharks, kind of not go off the board, but go in a different direction. Sure doesn't seem like they're going to, but I think when you go for anywhere between maybe 3 or 4, like either 3 or 4 to 13, I think there's a really good mix of players that could be maybe not help right away, because I can't imagine Lindy Ruff would be all that excited about adding an 18-year-old to the lineup in the NHL this year. But if the player makes it a point that, they belong, then that's the case. But there are a lot of very good players in there, guys that will be helped down the road. But it might require patience, a year, maybe 2 tops for guys in that range. At 9, 2 years tops. And I think that's what's difficult for Buffalo is that, like, you're going to get a good player, you're going to get a really good player, but you got to be patient. You're not drafting a savior to turn things around this year right now. And that's I think that's why you might hear some about, like, maybe number 9 is available, but I think that's more 9's available more as something to either you're swapping it with another first round pick, either to move up maybe in a crazy trade, or you're trading with a contender behind you that wants to add a JJ or a Bo or somebody, where they're like, well, we don't want to give up our first round pick, but we'll swap with you, kind of thing, like that sort of deal. But yeah, or you're trading back with a contender that wants to give you a really good player, like, I don't know, maybe if they were going after Jason Robertson from Dallas per se. Like, you give up 9 in that case, but you're swapping it with, like, a later Dallas pick or Dallas first next year, whatever. Who cares? It'll be low, but so what? You're getting an elite player at that point. So I think all options are on the table for them. But I mean, if you ask me to try to predict exactly how things are going to play out, I would be betting $0 on whether I'd be correct or not with it, because I am not. Anything could happen with this team right now.
Yeah, we're talking to our guy, Joe Yurden, Bleacher Report, noted hockey. And, Joe, I think it's kind of worth reframing, because the storyline that's different this year as compared to years past, and I'll draw the analogy here, like, for any walk of life, and nobody is saying that, you're going to lose your job or I'm going to lose my job, but if I had an inkling, like, oh, gosh, I better get more ad sales, or I better, like, get better ratings, or, like, for you better get more clicks, or whatever the profession may be, our behaviors would change, I would think. Will we see a different behavior from Kevin Adams where, like, hey, guys in Rochester will let him kind of, like, I'm just wondering if we're going to have more of a win now kind of moment here. Is that going to be kind of the expectation, though, that Kevin Adams is pretty much GMing for his job here?
Yeah, I think we'll get a good idea about that this summer, because I especially with the way some of these rumors have kicked up recently, and again, choose to believe them if you want to or not. Like, that's up to you. But with the way that kind of talk picks up, sometimes there's a little smoke to that fire, and you do wonder if maybe there is that pressure is there, and if you've got players that may or may not be unhappy, may or may not be happy being around, and, like, you've got to address that now. Boy, that's tough. That's really tough. And it makes trying to do things at the schedule that you want to, like, do things the way that you want to do it. If you presented with a difficult situation, that can change the attitude. But I would like to think that the pressure of having missed the playoffs every year since 2011, and Kevin being in charge since 2020, that's enough pressure to make you say, like, let's get this fixed now. I think when you look at how rough the attendance has been, how tough it's been for them to get season tickets sold, and all these other things, and the fan apathy and everything that's kicked in here the last couple of years, like, those should be enough warning signs to say, like, hey, listen, if we don't get this fixed, whoever comes after me is going to have an even harder job after that. Not that you want to do your own job to make it easier for somebody to take credit for your work after, but, like, you want to get this straightened out now, and it's very difficult. It's a very difficult situation, especially if the rumors are, if the rumors are true, and some of these guys are unhappy and may not want to stick around, and because then you're staring hard at a situation where it's like, boy, if we don't get some top end NHL players in returns, if we got to trade these guys, you're in a perpetual rebuild cycle, and being the feeder team for the rest of the NHL is just, they already have that appearance based on who's won the Stanley Cup the last 4 or 5 years. There's Sabre fingerprints on, certainly the last 3 teams. But you don't want to get caught in that cycle. And that might be the other hard part with this, is that these guys see the success former Sabres have had elsewhere, and they're like, boy, maybe I do have to get out of here. Maybe this is the way. And
well, they all talk, Joe.
but that's like a whole thing. Yeah. Like, winning fixes everything. If you start winning and getting everybody out, pulling the rope the same direction, then you don't have to worry about that anymore. But right now, it's tough. It's very tough.
Joe, you're in Bleacher Report, noted hockey. Joe, tell everybody about what content you got lined up here. Is now we're heading into a very busy part of the calendar in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, I've got a story coming up later this week at Bleacher Report, looking at which teams are poised to be the off-season Stanley Cup champions. I'll try to not pick the Dallas Stars, since they seem to be the team that does it all the time, and certainly not the Nashville Predators. They won it last year, and then, boy, oh boy, did that fail. I'll also have a story at Noted Hockey talking about restricted free agency and talk to some guys around the NHL this season, and how trying to get another contract is not always as easy as it seems, and how things play out can always be a little different. So, yeah, I got those things coming up for everybody this week. And then, boy, next week we're talking to Kevin Adams next week, and then the draft is next week, and the week after that is development camp. So it's not slowing down yet.
Wow. Well, Joe, keep up the great work. Let's do this again here. Joe, really appreciate your time today.
Hey, thanks, Gene. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Joe. Joe Yerdon from the Bleacher Report, noted hockey, joining us here in the Sports Bar. And before we hit a break, just had this thought, because the Florida Panthers, okay, whether they're on the verge of a dynasty, if you want to call them a dynasty, they're the 2-time champs. They've been to the final 3 years in a row. Go back 10 years, this was a joke of the franchise. This was a franchise that couldn't get anybody to go there. Player-wise, fan-wise, it was the one place that was empty. In the NBA, who do we hold? Oh, Golden State. Golden State couldn't get out of their own way for decades. And they drafted Curry. They had a new owner come in who was a little brash at the beginning, but culture change. The team in the NFL? It's the Buffalo Bills.
You're right.
The Buffalo Bills were a joke. And now well respected. It can be done for the Sabres. You can be a loser and make excuses about palm trees and taxes. It had nothing to do with the Chuck trade, nothing to do with the Sam Bennett trade, nothing to do with the Marchand trade. It's a team that's built basically on trades. Now you could say, well, they're going to resign everybody, and okay, maybe they all do take the hometown discount, but who cares? They're actually playing for something. My point is, Tim, we can talk about this more in happy hour here, but Sabre team isn't that far off. It's just they need a culture change. That's the thing. And
the pieces are there.
Why
the assets exist?
Like, if we're gonna move to Kekalainen, why haven't we started with the rest of our lives now?
Many are one. That's the thing that's most frustrating is, like, all the answers are in front of us, but the results are not.
That's because the owner is loyal to a fault.
Speaking of owner, I want some breaking news from Shams. Different sport, but
really,
the Buss family has sold their majority ownership of the Los Angeles Lakers to Mark Walter, the CEO and chairman of Diversified Holding Company, TWG Global. Jeannie Buss will continue to serve as governor, but the Buss family selling the Lakers.
Wow.
That's from Shams 3 minutes ago.
Wow.
Breaking news.
Congratulations to former sports bar guest, our guy there, Jay. What's his name? I can't think of his name. The guy who married Jeannie Buss. Anyways, congratulations to that whole family. That's something. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. More coming up next year on The Fan Rochester.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Bills training camp schedule is out in all. We're going to have a busy season. Chris Brown with one more.
July 23rd is the first practice of training camp, but Buffalo will hold 11 total practices in Rochester to prepare for the 2025 season. The return of the blue and red will take place on August 1st at 5:30 p.m. at Highmark Stadium.
Wednesday, July 23rd being 5 weeks from today, camp opening. The Baltimore Ravens with a big-name signing today, picking up free agent corner Jair Alexander. Rochester Red Wings looking to make it 2 in a row tonight. They play at Lehigh Valley. Just one game in the majors. The Red Sox and Mariners tied at 1 as they go to the third. Yankees tonight once again hosting the Angels. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Down to the final 5 seconds. Rats rain down. Lord Stanley staying in South Florida. Last year was greatness. This time it's historic. The Florida Panthers are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions.
Sam Bennett, your Conn Smythe winner.
I tore my adductor off the bone, and that had some hernia thing.
Connor McPhail. Tyrese Halliburton will likely be listed as questionable for tomorrow night's Game 6 of the finals.
A ring is a team accomplishment.
Caitlin Clark hits the deck.
When the officials don't get control of the ball game, this is what happens.
Mike Danger.
Usually when I'm gone, that's when news breaks.
Gene Battaglia.
I will pay money.
Bills training camp will start July 23rd.
Touchdown Ravens.
Jair Alexander.
I don't like the Yankees.
The Yankees have dropped 5 straight, shut out in 3 straight.
Braves rallied by the Mets 5-4-10.
Go Braves.
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
Happy hour here in the Sports Bar. We welcome you back in. Gene Battaglia with you, Tim Schneider today. And gosh, with all the storms around the area, just be a little careful. Take it a little slower on your drive home. You've got us alongside here today. And it's one of those, okay, I'm not wishing my time away because I love summer. With apologies to you, Jeremy White from WGR, you're wrong. Fall is not the elite season. It's summer. Summer is the time we get more time. We relax. We see more friends. Not really working. Actually kind of begins for a lot of us. Like right now. Like some of us have a holiday tomorrow. When they offered us a holiday tomorrow, Tim, we took a holiday. So that's why we're going to be, we're going to be celebrating Juneteenth tomorrow. Not here in the Sports Bar. We'll be back on Monday. Point being about Buffalo Bills training camp. Same as last year, same as the year before, same as the year before that. Sean McDermott is a creature of habit, and this works. And carbon copy down to the number of practices, down to the it begins here and it ends here, and we're going to have one practice that's not at 9:45 in the morning. It'll be 11:15 in the morning. That's because, well, it's on a Sunday after we're going to be gone on a Saturday. Buffalo Bills training camp schedule is out, Tim, and it is something I am certainly looking forward to. And I commend the Bills for staying here at Fisher, not just staying at Fisher, but keeping the camp the length that it is, because it does go all the way up until August the 8th. So that to me is it's an exciting time of year when we can talk some Buffalo Bills football here in Rochester. It's the one time of year where I do think we are a major league city.
We are the spectacle, especially with Hard Knocks coming.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be put on task, and we're going to show up. We don't have a choice. Rochester is going to be on the national scene for 2 full weeks with, well, actually longer with Hard Knocks. It will probably play out longer.
Now, see, like you say that, but like, will Rochester, or is it just going to be Pittsford? And here's Oak Hill. Here's the dairy that, gets way too much publicity. Here's, like to me, like, do the players, and this is the unknown. We always hear stories like, this is going back years, but it's different now. These guys are, they're not party animals. They're here to work. So, like, how will we see anything for Rochester as a whole, or are you just going to get the snapshot of the Erie Canal and the golf course, basically?
It's a different coaching staff, but to pull under the veil a little bit, my father worked security for training camp in a previous regime. When they would have their day off and their free time, they would get after it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
he knew, like, who was coming in, and
they had a curfew. They violated curfew. You give a wink and a nod, and they would pull out their mattresses and wrestle in the dorm. Like they're having a weekend. They've got 2 weeks to work, but there's some downtime with that.
The hockey season came to an end. We talked with Joe Yurden from the Bleacher Report, and yes, we talked about the Sabres and how, well, there's a lot of pressure here on the GM, and the Sabres are a team that you may think is light years away. They're not. There's talent there. They're picking 9th, which means they weren't the worst in the league. So can they get this together finally? That's the story locally. The story nationally, it continues to be this. Yesterday, we were joined in the show by our buddy, Dennis Bernstein, and this is prior to last night, Edmonton, their season ending here. But Dennis says not so fast, basically, on the idea that Connor McDavid is going to get traded.
Do you think Leon Draisaitl had a conversation with Connor McDavid when he signed in Edmonton for 8 years? I think he did. His wife, Connor's wife, just opened a high-end bar in Edmonton last week. So I'm not sure about that. Here's a more likely scenario of Connor leaving. You win games 6 and 7. If you leave in 2 years, nobody will ever begrudge you. You came in 11 years, 10 years, did the job. I think it's more likely he would leave if he won than he lost, because the type of player and person that I know he is, and I don't know him that well, he doesn't want to leave without finishing the job. And Leon's going to be there for another 8 years, and you know that Bowman's go out and he's going to try a different way. Go get a goaltender that you can trust. Guys, here's the thing. You got to get a goalie. You got to get a guy you can trust. And maybe it's Stu Skinner. So I think it's more likely that it kind of wins than he loses, that he would leave Edmonton.
Yeah, boy, the you got to get a goalie thing is foreshadowing. That wasn't good last night, Tim. Like, first period, you're down 2-0. Like, okay, that's it.
We speculated all afternoon yesterday about going back to Stuart Skinner, and even Chris Knobloch said, like, we trust him to get it done.
What else is he going to say?
Over.
Yeah,
it was over after
yeah.
the first period. Like, you've got the 2 best players in hockey on your team. You got 40 minutes to get 2 goals. Maybe you're not dead, but
that third goal was just ridiculous. Like, letting it kind of bounce off your shoulder. It's not just making the save, Tim. It's what do you do with the rebound?
You have to control it.
Yeah, if you can't control the rebound, forget it. These guys are going to figure it out.
You're already trailing. You have to make that save in any circumstance, let alone a must-win game in the Stanley Cup final.
So I to me, I'm leaning on the side of Dennis, just putting a pin in that for now. But the noise is only going to get louder and louder until Edmonton says, here's your new contract. Like, you want to talk about a GM under pressure. Okay, that's win now mode. Go find a goaltender. I don't know. Is UPL better than whatever Edmonton tried it out? I can't say that.
100% yes.
100% yes.
I am firm in the belief that UPL is a better goalie than Stuart Skinner. He doesn't have the supporting cast offensively. I mean, Tage Thompson's a stud, but he's no Connor McDavid. UPL doesn't have the pieces in front of him to benefit the way Stuart Skinner does.
UPL, they soured on him at the end of last year. You're playing Reimer there. Like, what are we doing?
We are getting closer and closer to Devin Levi's season in Buffalo.
They don't want to hear that in Buffalo. I did 2 hits on the station out there, and nobody wants to hear that based on what Devin Levi did or did not do and based on a series against Laval. So, well, too bad.
They're
going
wrong.
Up.
That's fine.
There's nothing he can do here in Rochester.
One more year just to assert himself as an NHL goalie. It takes time as a goalie. You gotta have patience. Devin Levi is the answer. It is coming soon. Be ready for it.
866-4FAN, 866-4326. So we mentioned the Bills training camp. The top story in the NFL today, though, and this is shocking because I say 9 times out of 10, I'd say it's more than that. Like, people that say, oh, my gosh, DeAndre Hopkins, see, look, he's tweeting out the lyrics to Buffalo Soldier. He wants to be Bill because he wants to win. No, these guys, 9 times out of 10, probably more, they'll go to wherever the money is, and you can't fault him that, okay? The idea that they want to win, no, they want to be paid. What we happened today in the NFL isn't that at all.
Outside of the norm, for sure.
Jair Alexander was due to make $17.5 million from the Packers. Now, he was released just recently. Why didn't that happen back in, well, I'll tell you why, because the Packers want Jair Alexander on the team. They didn't want him at $17.5 million. So they're the give and take, give and take, give and take. I'm sure that probably split the difference even. Maybe it would have been 11 or 12 million, okay, that Jair Alexander was being offered. The Packers were like, no, I'll go out there. Okay, he knows his market value. And I don't think any of us would have thought he would have accepted less. Except he accepted way less. 1 year, $6 million from Baltimore. Except that $6 million, Tim, isn't really $6 million. You got to hit every incentive. This is Jair Alexander from a reach out from his friend, from a quarterback going back to their college days, and Lamar Jackson. Lamar, help us out here. And this is what the Ravens could afford to do. I think this is a stunning move. And I'm not ready to say, oh no, the Buffalo Bills are not going to, get to the Super Bowl this year. We got to worry about the Ravens. Look, the Ravens are always a good team. But now the Ravens are like, okay, you know what? We're at the table here too. It makes it a little more fun here heading into the season.
They knew they had a missing piece. I don't know if this fixes everything, but it's definitely another weapon in an arsenal that was already pretty good. Like, they're a Super Bowl contender every year. Adding another Pro Bowl or All-Pro piece on the cheap, who's a friend. Like, the quote from Lamar Jackson was, go get him Eric DaCosta, the GM. And he went and got him for nothing. $4 million guaranteed out of a guy who was expected almost $18 million. That is a 80% discount almost for a guy who is a Pro Bowl caliber talent with a person he's comfortable playing with. He's good friends with Lamar Jackson.
Well, okay. Is Jair Alexander better than Tre'Davious White?
At this point in their careers, I would say absolutely.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Jair Alexander, you drafted a corner, Tim. So that's why, spare me the, oh my gosh, the Bills weren't in on this. They could have had him for $6 million. No. He wasn't going to come here because you know what also is available in Baltimore? Playing time. That was a glaring weakness, in my opinion, last year, to the point where, okay, Tre'Davious White was, this time last year, okay, he's going to the Rams, coming off an injury. The Rams caught him. When they caught him, he was damaged goods, and the Ravens were down to few options.
You bring him in and hope it works out, and when it doesn't, you move on.
Yeah, and
like what they did.
Yeah, so to me, the Ravens fixed the problem. We were joined earlier today by PJ Glasser for his normal Wednesday segment. PJ Glasser, host, descended in on the BetMGM Network, and I asked him the question. I framed it like this, Tim. If you ask me the question, what do the Bills need to do? What needs to happen in order for them to get over the hump? I think the answer is easy, right? Tighten up the defense. Stop being so leaky. When the moment happens in the AFC playoffs, rise to the occasion and make a damn play. It's on the defense. Sean McDermott's defense. And to Brandon Beane's credit and to McDermott's credit, too, they went out, and whether it works or not, we shall see. But they have a lot of new blood on that defense.
They attempted to plug the holes. Whether or not, like you said, whether or not it works, time will tell.
Yeah, we're all optimistic it's going to work. That
the roster now is in a better spot than it was 6 months ago.
So, back to the Ravens, like I said, okay, that's the answer. Like, PJ, what would be the Ravens thing? I thought he would say corner. No. Your running game. Like, what? What are you talking about? You have Derrick Henry. You have Lamar Jackson. And, well, it's not really the running game the way the PJ gave the explanation for it. It's the coaching.
The scheme, yes.
The idea, and I didn't realize it because I think of the one play where he took off. In that playoff loss to the Bills, they didn't have one design run for Lamar Jackson.
I didn't connect that, but I trust him. I believe that to be true because I believe him. But
that should have been on a frigid night. Like, you would want that ground game to get going, but yet we're going to throw this pass deep down the left sideline that's going to get picked off. You 3 turnovers for Baltimore in that game. What was the difference? And you know what helps when you don't not to turn the ball over, keeping it on the ground. So in that regard, PJ kind of sharing some knowledge, and I'm ready. I'm ready for the season opener. Lamar Jackson, by the way, saying that not directed at the Bills directly, but that's something. Well, we want vengeance.
And that's a good mindset to have from a competitor like that, though. Like, he might not feel slighted on the MVP snub, if you want to call it that, but those guys are almost created rivals. I don't think they dislike each other as people or players, but the fan bases have vitriol for Lamar Jackson, and the Ravens don't like Josh Allen. And it might be forced, but it exists in one way or another. That's a fun rivalry to have but on this side of it, like the Bills are the Ravens' abyss, sort of, except in the regular season. The Ravens kind of have their number. But those three teams, the third being the Chiefs, they're always the class of the AFC. They've got premier quarterbacks, and they're fun to watch.
866-4FAN, 866-4326 is our number. We'll get to the NBA news coming up in shots. We also have, I think it's a pretty big storyline. Well, two of them. One sale is happening. The other is in process. The one sale that's happening, it's noteworthy because where would you put the Lakers if you lumped them all in? Okay, like in terms of heritage franchises in professional sports in North America, it's Yankees 1, Cowboys 2. Some may argue the other way around.
Lakers, Celtics,
3.
pick your order.
Lakers 3, just because of the market. The Lakers got sold today. And the Buss family selling, I don't even know the guy's name, but that guy is only going to be the backer. Jeannie Buss will still serve as the governor. So that's a big story. And what does that mean for the Lakers? Probably nothing. It might just be as simple as let's cash out while is it ever going to get any better? I'm kind of bummed that HBO put the cap in that Lakers series. I don't know if you ever got a chance to watch.
I did not.
It was fantastic. It was it even got the executive producer liking it. She doesn't like basketball. It was a lot of fun. The other storyline that I think is worthy of a conversation, because I don't know where this is headed. So we learned today that there's a deal that's on the verge of closing for the Tampa Bay Rays. $1.7 billion. Tim, who even knew that the stadium was on the market? But it's really not a surprise. Stu Sternberg is the longtime owner, bought the team for $800 million. He's going to turn a profit, pretty big profit at that. But the storyline in Tampa, if I can tell it in 30 seconds, old stadium in St. Petersburg being the part of the area that really nobody goes to except retirees, not accessible to the main your main fan base in Tampa. It's a struggling franchise, and we need a new stadium. You could never get one done in Tampa for whatever various reason, but you know what? We're going to make it work here in St. Pete because we got this big development deal, and everything is signed. It just needs approval. And then Mother Nature intervenes. There comes a hurricane. Knocks off the dome, except there's a lot of other problems in that area. Whoops. Now the government's saying, you know what? We can't abide by this. What? Then we're out. The deal completely falls apart. Oh, by the way, your stadium doesn't have a roof, and now you got to go play in a minor league park, where the Yankees play their spring training games. That's where we are. Oh, there's a group in Orlando that is supposedly building a stadium because they're part of a rich development project, because when you say Orlando, of course, that goes hand in hand with development. Okay, that brings us up to speed. Enter this guy today for the Rays, who is a developer or made his money in development and real estate. Of course he did. Out of the Jacksonville area. Now, Jacksonville, nowhere near Tampa, nowhere near Orlando, but close enough to kind of monitor what's going on. $1.7 billion. So does this guy go back, say the deal gets done, does he go back to the local leadership in St. Pete and say, let's resuscitate this deal? You know they want to do that. Does he go to the outfit in Orlando and said, hey, let's talk? Does he play the two against one another? Or does he buy the team for 1 year, kind of sit back, twiddle his thumbs, and listens to offers from Nashville, Charlotte, any other city that is ready to build a stadium? Tim, it just seems like this is kind of a rocky period here for the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because the valuation of the team, you said $1.7 billion?
Yeah.
The stadium alone is almost that same cost. So if he's going to buy into the stadium, that's double what his investment is if he's involved in that part of it, if he wants to keep them in Tampa Bay. if he decides to hold them, they play another year in a minor league park and then move, that kind of puts you as the villain.
Well, I think, and this is what I would think, unless Sternberg is saying, I want out, this has to get approved by the majority of the other owners in Major League Baseball. They're not approving it unless he says, this is my plan. If he doesn't have a plan other than I'm going to buy this and hold it, and we're going to go through all this nonsense, it is, to me, an embarrassment that Rob Manfred has not one but 2 teams playing in minor league parks. All preventable. This isn't the Blue Jays. That was a pandemic. That was out of necessity, okay? This is, you couldn't figure this out after decades in Oakland, and then you finally give them, you're not accepting their offer, okay, but you're forced to, you don't have another stadium, and then Mother Nature comes in and rips off a roof, and now you've got this situation. This is, honestly, Tim, like, baseball should contract.
I was just going to say, I'm not on board for contraction, but when it kind of plays itself out the way that it does, maybe you consider it. It'll never, ever happen because there's too much money on the table. But if you can't have 30 sustainable markets, what are we doing?
What are we doing? Like, you should have, like, stadiums ready to go, TV deals ready to go. There is no TV deal in Sacramento. It's just a little local yokel thing they have out there.
Their press conferences are in a
it's a tent. Yeah, it's a tent. It's basically a pop-up tent.
Not great.
No, like,
actually embarrassing.
Yeah, like the stadium we have here in Rochester, much nicer than the one they have out in Sacramento. So, like, I want to see where this storyline goes. And the thing about the Rays, too, is this. Their front office in terms of the baseball side, wow, are they respectable. They know how to work with a budget, stay within the budget, and they're just a pain in the ass.
Develop talent, maintain talent.
They are just a pain in the ass, having watched them sweep the Mets, and they're one of the hottest teams right now. So if you have a new owner come in, does that say the same, or is this team then become, I don't know, the Rockies, the Nationals, these teams?
I was going to say the Angels, but it's kind of the same. Yeah, like if the guy just is using it as an investment to make money, he's not going to care.
No.
But if you want to build and develop and spend and win, winning is also profitable. It's crazy to think about. If you win, you make money. So if you invest in that, you can make money doing that as well. It costs money, but the reward is certainly there if you're willing to spend.
Because of the salary cap structure, like there's some owners that don't want to even put the effort into winning. Let me just make sure that I'm not losing money. Yeah, the Pirates, I want to say Cincinnati until they sign Elliot Cruz to a long-term contract. We're way late for the break, so we've got shots coming up, some more stories here in sports that we haven't gotten to, and then time for your calls at last call, 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326. In for Mike Danger, he's Tim Schneider. I'm Gene Battaglia here in the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger. On 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester. When you wake up through the Odyssey app and make your mornings as thrilling as a game-winning touchdown. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Training camp schedule for the Buffalo Bills is out at St. John Fisher College. There will be 11 practices that are open to the public. Steve Tasker today on One Bills Live says it's the perfect setup.
McDermott loves going over there. Gets their team away. They live together, meet together, eat together. They're in dorm rooms together. It's a great team-building avenue for the team. And that for a team that values culture the way they do, I think they're going to stay there for the foreseeable future. As long as McDermott's here, they're going to go there for at least a week.
Camp opens 5 weeks from today, Wednesday, July 23rd. The Baltimore Ravens today signing free agent corner Jair Alexander. It's the bargain. 1 year, $6 million. Only 4 of that is guaranteed. The Wings tonight play at Lehigh Valley. Red Sox are up 3-1 on Seattle. Oh, the Lakers got sold today for $10 billion. Gene Battaglia, sports leader, The Fan Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. One Bills Live in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Weekday afternoons on The Fan Rochester.
Buy low, sell high. Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Let's start there because to me this is kind of shocking. But then again, I was kind of shocked that Mark Cuban last year sold the Mavs. Somebody I thought that would forever own that team, synonymous with the franchise, synonymous with the city. He sold, okay, I'm done, $3.5 billion. The Buss family is out. So Dr. Jerry Buss passed away years ago. Jeannie Buss, of course, heading this up. She won kind of the battle amongst the children after Jerry Buss died in 2013. She sold today $10 billion to a guy named Mark Walter. Mark Walter has a lot of different businesses. I didn't know that somebody had $10 billion laying around. Here's one question. Like, Cuban's a smart guy. Jeannie Buss, smart woman. Very, very sharp. Do they know something about the NBA that we don't? Why sell? I guess, are you like $10 billion is too good? That's your number there?
I don't know the financials on what is coming with the TNT no longer being a thing, but that might play a role. I'm sure they've made a lot of money doing that.
Here's where I'm going with that. What's the unknown? No, the known is like they're going to make a ton of money here from Amazon, from NBC, their new TV partners, and Disney certainly. That is already paid in advance. Here's where I'm going with this. This new league that Bill Simmons, this Saudi league, like, are they going to start poaching talent? This is something that's around the corner where, okay, they tried it with golf and now that's going away. Will you have a rival league to the NBA to the point where now you're kind of wondering, all right, is this going to actually, I don't know. But I think it's noteworthy that the two most prominent owners, Mark Cuban, Jeannie Buss, they're both out.
If you offer me $10 billion for anything, I'm taking it. So I mean, if that's where we're at, $10 billion for something, it's all yours. Take it. Please treat it well. I will be sitting on this throne of money. $10 billion is an unfathomable amount of money. Like, I cannot compute that.
The Tyrese Halliburton storyline, of course, like, he's a game-time decision. Like, they're going to say anything different. Indiana head coach Rick Carlisle says his team is preparing for both scenarios. We also heard from Halliburton himself today.
I think I have to be as smart as I want to be. I have to understand the risks, ask the right questions. But I'm a competitor. I want to play. I'm going to do everything in my power to play. And that's just what it is. But I think the answer to that is dependent on who you ask.
Yeah, I think it would be crazy. You've got a shot to win this game without Halliburton. Could you save him for Game 7? I think if you just look at this from the Indiana standpoint, if they go out here, nobody's going to fault them. They will be remembered for all time if they somehow pull this off. Rick Carlisle, as a head coach, has an opportunity to do something special here.
I think they've got a shot. I don't think they get it done, but they have the fact that they have an opportunity to do it without Halliburton means that if Halliburton is available come a potential Game 7, you've got to almost consider them not necessarily the betting favorite, but the momentum is on their side. You're probably, if they win Game 6 without him, you're thinking they're going to win Game 7 with him.
Yeah. Tim, I think the narrative that the Panthers won the Cup because, they can recruit because of no state taxes and the great weather, contrary to what Kevin Adams may think. They got Brett Marchand in a trade. Marchand 6 goals in the final. Still not the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. The guy that won it was Sam Bennett. Oh, by the way, they got him in a trade, too, from Calgary in 2021. They've got Matthew Tkachuk in a trade. Bennett, 15 goals this postseason. Just unbelievable. We're joined by Dennis Bernstein yesterday, joined today by Joe Yurden. And will Sam Bennett actually hit free agency? Both Yurden and Bernstein kind of on the it's like of all the guys, probably he's the guy that's going to re-up before we get to that.
I think that they're going to do their damnedest to make sure that he sticks around, especially after the postseason that he had. But they've built a culture. They've built a camaraderie within that locker room that people want to be around each other, and they're succeeding. That makes it a whole lot easier to want to stick around, too. But they've got a talented roster that is borderline dynasty. Like they've got 2 cups in a row.
No,
is it a dynasty automatically? 2 in a row?
Yes. Here's why. Pop quiz, everyone. Pop quiz. Panthers can become the first team since who to win 3 straight cups?
Detroit.
Is that your final answer?
It's wrong, but yeah.
It's absolutely wrong. The answer, the 1983 New York Islanders, who won 4 in a row. 80 to 83. And to think about that, then you had 4 in a row before that from Montreal. So you had only 2 teams winning the Cup in an 8-year span. But Edmonton came close. They won 4 in a 5-year span with Gretzky. The only thing, they had an own goal, if I remember, against Calgary, and Calgary ended up winning the Cup that year. The idea that Florida could actually do this, and if they get Bennett back, they get Marchand back. Eklund is also a free agent. There's a lot of guys, but the core of the team is going to be there. We don't have the full television numbers from the Stanley Cup final, but they're not going to be good. And look, we knew they weren't going to be good year over year. Game 5 itself, we know this, down 35%. Same 2 teams. What gives? Simple answer. Last year was on ABC. This year on TNT. The majority of the country still loves their network television, and there are still some providers like Fubo who don't carry Turner, so that's not helping matters at all.
Making your product inaccessible is, believe it or not good
not
for the
good.
product.
No.
You've got to make it accessible. It's 2025. Everything should be available to everybody in a moment's notice. I should be able to pull it up on my phone. I should be able to pull it up on my computer. I should be able to pull it up on my smart
TV. If you're Turner paying for all this, but the idea that there's carriers out there, major ones that aren't, that is a Gary Bettman problem.
You got to do what you have to do to make your product accessible and digestible. Put it out there. Pay it. Pay them the money that they want, and then people will watch it, and you will make money doing that. It's science.
Not a good week for the Boston Red Sox. Well, I guess they did sweep the Yankees, but I'm talking about after that. The Devers trade, and, well, now comes this. Fenway Park workers have authorized a strike. 95% of the union members are in favor of this. Now, it doesn't mean one is coming, but the threat is there, and it could happen at any time. The Sox are back home next week against the Jays. This also happened in Philadelphia last year, and then there was a last-minute agreement, so there was no lack of concession workers. So you're talking about, everybody from the ushers to the ticket counter to the guy who pours your beer. Like, how could you work a game on the fly? It's one of those things you don't kind of think about until they're not there.
There's disaster plans, but you never want to unravel them. I don't know what that's a major league arena. You have to have hundreds and hundreds of people on staff every day. You've got 95% of them bailing out. Good luck.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're looking at the revenues going up, and when you measure them.
Give me mine.
Well, apparently, I was just doing some reading. $20 an hour.
That's not enough.
No.
Especially in Boston.
In Boston, it's not. That would be a tough way. Heck, to even get to the game, I mean, you can't park there without giving up an arm and a leg, so you're taking the tee in and everything else. It's I haven't been there in a long time, though.
It's been about 10 years for me, and back then it was a Yankees series, so prices were insane. But just the bar next door, pitchers were $22, so I can't imagine them now. But, like, it's not cheap to be in Boston, especially if you're working essentially a minimum wage job.
Lately, Major League Baseball's Home Run Derby has been getting better TV ratings than the actual game itself. Now is the time of year where we get to see, all right, who's getting an invite? Who's saying, yes, I'm in the Home Run Derby? We can tell you one young star doesn't want anything to do with it. I'm kind of bummed about this one, Tim. Pete Crow Armstrong of the Cubs says, it's not for me, quote unquote, saying his swing isn't designed for an event like that. PCA has 19 homers for the Cubs this season. That's the most at this point of the season since Sammy Sosa in 2002.
He's a superstar in the making. I know he came from
the Mets.
Your Mets.
Yeah.
The Cubs need to do what they can to keep him and Kyle Tucker in that same outfield because that's a promising outfield if they're able to maintain.
Okay, here's the thing. Resign Kyle Tucker. I look at like what the Red Sox are doing right now. Okay, who is the prize of free agency? Vlad Guerrero Jr., first baseman, is off the market. It's Kyle Tucker. If you're not familiar with him, the guy could rake. Last year gets hurt in Houston. Houston we don't want to pay this, so they dealt him to the Cubs. And, for the Cubs is either a really fun one-year rental or the beginning of something good. Tim, let's take a quick break. Time for last call. And by the way, this is the last call segment, the last of the week. We're off for Juneteenth tomorrow, so give us a call, 866-4FAN, here on The Fan, Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports excitement. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester, is everywhere. The only way to take The Fan Rochester with you is the free Odyssey app. Download it today and follow the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Last call is for you. When we started the sports bar, we wanted to be having a little fun with the the kitschiness of having a sports bar. Last call, like we're flicking the lights on and off. Last chance again in the show, 866-4326. Our buddy Gilbert, the Jags fan. What's up, Gilbert? How are you, buddy?
Not much, guys. How you guys doing?
Good. All right. So now are you feeling better about your team? How's everything? We haven't heard from you in a while.
It's been a while. Like I was telling the guys, I feel like I had to go down to Duval and do some spring cleaning. I mean, quite frankly, I can tell you this is the best that I've felt as a Jags fan since the inaugural season almost, as far as management is concerned. It was rough. It was rough. I didn't understand how Doug could care more about who's calling plays than the goodness of the team. But, I mean, hey, it happens. Sometimes you just don't hire the right people.
That's it. Yeah, and you have this generational talent that – hey, even if you don't get to where you are, your team is going to be a lot of fun provided Hunter's healthy this year.
100%. I can be honest. Even maybe November time, I was not on the Hunter bandwagon at all. One of my buddies asked me, would you want him? I said, nah, I wouldn't want him. But after looking at the tape, listening to the pundits, I'm kind of all in. The kid has amazing hands.
Thank you very much, Gil. Appreciate it. Don't be a stranger. Sorry, we got to wrap it up. I've got this breaking news.
No, wrap it up,
okay,
guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
buddy.
it.
All right, thanks, buddy. Shedeur Sanders driving 101 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's our quarterback, baby.
What?
The Browns are going to do Browns things. It doesn't matter what the situation is or the circumstances. The Browns are going to Brown.
Okay, so here's his punishment. Ready? Okay, this is in a 60-mile-an-hour zone. I even think if it's me or you.
Arrested.
He must either pay a fine of $250. Yeah, that's what's going to end up happening.
He just became everybody's Uber for training camp for the Browns. Rookie punishment.
41 miles over the speed limit, Shedeur Sanders. Wow.
I mean,
and this is after midnight.
The jokes write themselves. So the Browns continue to Brown. You get the guy at a 5th-round steal, and he still finds a way to make a name for himself by being a buffoon.
Tim, I'm just so happy that this came across the wire, not like 20 minutes from now, but while we're still on the air. All the goodwill. Everything. You're thinking, all right, you know what? We're behind this kid. He's doing the right things. This is going to be a fun team. 101 miles an hour.
Joe Flacco just won the starting job without doing anything other than showing up to work like an adult. That's it.
Or maybe it's Kenny Pickett. I don't know.
What a mess. I'm so glad that this is happening.
Sanders 101 miles an hour. At 12:24 in the morning, too.
Maybe he had a 12:30 curfew. I don't know. But always fun. Now we get to sleep on this for like 4 days.
Okay, so this is what it is. Pay $250. It's a 4th-degree misdemeanor. It's essentially a traffic ticket. Does he show up in court on July 3rd? I'm going to say no.
No, he doesn't have to. He's going to pay the fine. It's going to go away, and the memes are going to be incredible. Just give it an hour or two, and Twitter is going to be a joy wave of Shedeur Sanders 101 Uber.
I can guarantee JR is going to have a field day with us. JR Sport Brief coming up at 6 o'clock. PJ Glasser here today on our show. He's in tonight on BetMGM tonight with Ryan Horvath coming up at 7. If you miss any of today's show, you can download the Odyssey app. Go back and listen in time up to 72 hours. Thanks to PJ Glasser. Thanks to Joe Yurden. Thanks to you, Tim Schneider. You're back in next week, too.
I will be here.
You will be here. Again, we will set you up. We will talk to you Monday here. This is 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester. Have a good night, everyone.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.